Hey, how is everybody doing this time of the day? Whether it's morning, evening, or night, we are glad to have you here for the semifinals, the knockout stage of SATAC 2022. Today we have a fantastic fight ready for you guys between the venerable Russian and Chinese airframes of the 51st, of course, famous for flying their FC-3 Sukhois, versus the motley crew and their motley assortment of motley airframes. Hopefully they will be able to kick some ass. I am excited to see it. I hope you guys are too. It should be fantastic. I'm a little bit out of it, man. I don't know about you guys. Woke up and time zones were just completely awash in my brain, and it took me forever to get everything sorted out in my head of what time it was where I was, never mind the rest of the world. But I was too excited. I wanted to see this fight, watching all the fights through the preliminary matches was fantastic. Now getting into this knockout stage, this tournament style of the fight, you just constantly want to see people fighting at their best, and now they're going to be, because they're here. They won the matches before. We're going to see some of the best teams go head to head with each other, and it's just exciting. We should probably get right into where they're going to go head to head with each other. So you know what, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Of course, TAC view. SATAC works in a very fair setup. We want to make sure that each team has the best possible chance to do well. And so we work with a series of different maps, and we use a random number generator to figure out which map and which weather setting they're going to fly at. We have 18 different items to get through here, and we're going to roll it live on stream. So there you can see right there, we've got between 1 and 18. We're going to figure out which map in which weather setting, go away, works best for these teams. 18, oh boy, that is evening, high and scattered clouds, Adna versus Senlufra. We shall see. Hopefully all the teams will have given the information to the represented parties. Hopefully all of the teams have that map. Of course, if not, no worries. We will re-roll with the adjusted scale to see which maps they actually have. But that could be interesting. An evening fight would be something that we haven't seen before in here with SATAC this year. Of course, adding a whole another level of difficulty, especially to players who use some of those older airframes like FC-3 that don't have access to night vision goggles. Being forced to fight in the dark could really throw a wrench in some of their plans, but we will see, of course. Hopefully everybody has that map. And while we do that, let's just talk about this final stage we're in. Now, before we used a group series system where there were 4 different groups with teams inside of those groups, and they would fight against each other in an even number of matches, and the winner of the most rounds was crowned the winner of that tournament, of that little group tournament. Of course, those winners are now here in the final stage. 2 winners from each team move on to the final stage, and now it is a traditional tourney-style knockout. We've had some matches already, of course, as you can see, SPQR versus 343 and ETF versus PTF. Now we're here today. We've just had InSky versus Alamo. I haven't yet gotten confirmation from the studio who won that match, but it did just complete. And of course, we are here today for 51st versus TMC. The winner of today's match will go on to fight ETF in the next round of the finals, and that will be, well, that'll be next week. It'll be certainly interesting to see. I honestly can't figure out who I think is going to win today. I mean, both teams have performed very well to get to this stage before. We've seen 51st with some pretty high-level coordination, some of the most coordinated teams in this fight. Now, of course, going into these final stages, one change has been made from the previous stages. no more magic AWACS. They are no longer going to get an AWACS that shows them everything. Players will now be using a live ATC view, and they will have to have a GCI within their team who's going to be relaying them information of where planes are, where their friendlies are, altitudes, azimuths, all this sort of information, and they're going to have to be ingesting that rapidly and manually. No longer can they rely on the all-seeing eye of Sauron, that is the E3 that we have been having hang out in these matches. So that'll be very interesting to see, and a level of coordination may be impacted by this. Of course, only time will tell. But it seems I haven't heard anything back. It seems that map 18 might be where the fight's going. I'm going to make just double sure. So I'm very excited to see an evening match. While they sort that out, guys, of course, we can take a moment to thank our sponsors. Of course, without them, this would not be possible. And go ahead and watch my favorite part of all these streams. Well, I mean, couldn't be anything else than the trailer. right, and we are back. Sounds like, so far, we will be fighting on Syria today. As we rolled 18, it seems to be everybody has it. Of course, we are still making sure everyone's all on the same page. Of course, one of the difficulties today, our match organizers, which have been the 51st, are now fighting as well. Of course, they're trying to make sure they are all ready and set up at the same time, so a little bit of running around with our heads on fire, but I'm sure that just is par for the course. It looks like the players are starting to get into the server. We're going to have to make our way over there for 51st versus TMC. I am surely excited. And of course, the ever eventful DCS loading menu. But we're here. Oh. We're here with technical difficulties, possibly. And there we go, the server resetting, making sure everything is up and fresh for our pilots today. Well, now let's see. We've talked about the maps, and we've talked about the change in the tournament style, getting here into the final stage with the knockouts. Let's talk a little bit about the rules of this fight while we wait for DCS to sort itself out. Now, of course, one of the big rules with any PvP fight is, hey, what weapons do we have access to, right? And in SATAC, you have access to AIM 120s, R77s, R27ERs, and ETs. You got access to all the missiles you could want, SD10s. You're not limited in technology, but you are limited to... That was something. One moment, please. We're going to rerun the trailer real quick as we sort something out. Alrighty. Well, hopefully while we get everything figured out on the DCS side, let's take a look at the TAC view today. We can get an idea of where the fighting is going to happen. Now, large map today, of course, here on Syria. In addition to being evening, there is not the world's greatest abundance of terrain to take advantage to. Of course, the blue team, which will be starting here, this will rotate halfway through the match, will have the little string of mountains here on their edge of the map to hide from. They'll be starting at Incrylic. And of course, the red team here will have mostly open ground. They're fighting over here, so it'll be largely open. We obviously always run the issue and risk of a CFIT, of an aircraft crashing into the ground, returning to the landing zone a little bit faster than intended. But there will not be a lot of mountains today, of course. Like we said earlier, it is evening though, so that does have an effect. One moment here as we sort a technical issue. Hopefully it is all sorted. We are on the Syria map, Coxie. Well, as we've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Indeed, me too, Riker. In fact, I may have made a bit of a request that when I saw this fight sorted out, I would be given the opportunity to stream it here. Of course, let's take a look while we get into DCS. We can get a rough idea of what each team is bringing based on the TAC view. We have 2 J-11s and a flight of Su-33s here from 51st, which I believe means that they have a couple more ordnances on those Su-33s, as well as a few Fox 3 missiles on the J-11s. Here on the TMC side, we have F-16s and F-18s with a single J-11 right now. Of course, we have also seen these guys using the venerable JF-17. So we will have to see if they bring it out once more. Let's get a look at this in DCS. At DCS's own time, of course. Here we can get a better view of our map. We see we do have this main mountain range we were talking about before, and a smaller central mountain range here around the border between Syria and Turkey, more in the center of the map, but it is a lot lower in altitude. We will not see as much of an issue as some of these higher mountains do. Of course, nothing quite as high as some of the stuff we see in the Caucasus region, but still mountains nonetheless. Some of the players can, while defending missiles, use this terrain to their advantage. Let's take a look here at TMC as Dauber makes his way down the airfield. You can see the sun already setting on these aircraft. Looks like the TMC liveries may have failed to load in. We see Starry Fox 9, Fresh, Gambler, and Tail making their way sorted out. Indeed does look like, unfortunately, the liveries have broken. Unfortunately for me, since the last time I was streaming this, my entire PC broke and has to have been rebuilt and reinstalled. Let's see if perhaps I got a little bit better with the Kiap liveries, and unfortunately it looks like I did not. And it does mean that they will lose a little bit of that pretty factor, but the skills of the players still out here to show. How is the temperature and wind conditions? That is a great question. We have a little bit of clouds here, as you can see. Over our airfield, shouldn't be too much wind, and the temperatures shouldn't be too abnormal. We actually have almost no indicated wind down here, and I don't seem to have a temperature reading. Have to get on that. Our first set of pilots making their way towards the end of the runways. Both teams getting themselves prepared, although it does seem TMC might be waiting for one more pilot to join in. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 aircraft. Looks like possibly losing or missing a sixth. We'll have to see. Moist and windy. I would hope not, but, you know, all the more fun to make these players deal with as they as we graduate towards the more complicated levels of these fights. And interestingly enough here, the red team now has an A50 as their AWACS. Now, both teams have been degraded to an A50. No more fancy E3s. Of course, I don't believe in DCS that makes too big of a difference. Let's take a look at the loadouts here. We'll take a look at the Su-33s first. And they are rocking largely what we expect here. Plenty of R-27ERs. They're going to be up high, up fast, letting these missiles tear. And we also will have some R-77ETs. Just a question, guys, to make sure it's not on my end. Let me know if the stream starts running a bit laggy. It should be fine, but it does seem to be biting a little bit here. Couple R-27ETs on the Su-37s, or 33 as well. There is a frame drop. Okay, a little lag. Planes are hitching. A bit laggy. Thank you guys for letting me know. See what we can't do about it. And while we see what we can't do about it, let's, of course, as we were, continue talking about these guys' airframes and their ordnance. A lot of R-27ERs. These guys like to be way up high, way up fast. They've got a couple ETs that is a thermal optical version, so the enemy aircraft will not get a launch warning when the missile is fired. They will have to defend using flares. They won't be able to use radar defense methods. Of course, missile defense methods will still work, as always. We may have to see here. And you'll have to let me know if this helps out with the frames at all. It has a little bit, but not too much. DCS, of course, deciding to have issues today after all the preparation. View externally, some A50 FPS. Indeed, indeed. Now, hopefully could be land causing lag. That is a good point. Looks like a little bit of lag here on the A50. As both teams get themselves sorted out, we're going to have to check this from the TAC view. And I'm just going to make some minor adjustments to DCS and make sure that it runs perfectly. Why would you choose the Su-33 over the J-11? Well, I think one of the reasons might be just the desire to have, I think that's a couple extra pylons, if I'm not mistaken. As well as a few extra horsepower out of that engine. Of course, we don't use horsepower for these engines. We use a little bit more thrust out of the engine. And you get canards, too, which might give a little bit of AOA. All right, real quick. Let's go ahead. We'll check this on the TAC view as things get sorted out. I take a quick moment to adjust a few settings here. High and fast is the name of the game over at the 51st. TMC likely doing much the same. Of course, high and fast, sort of the name of the game everywhere. We shall see. Hopefully this small adjustment makes DCS a little bit more bearable for everybody on stream. load that up and see about what TMC might do against their opponents right now. Of course, we can take a look and see if they've gotten all their players in the airframes. Now we do have a second Viper, 2 Vipers. So 3, 4 Vipers, is that? Mostly Vipers. Indeed, almost only Vipers here. Plus a J11 and, of course, an F-18C. Starry Fox 9, for those of you who are not familiar, is one of the 343 pilots coming in here as a bit of a stand-in, a bit of a mercenary here for TMC. Of course, a very, very threatening pilot in the F-18. I'm sure TMC are more than pleased to have Starry Fox joining them today. They're going to have, of course, lots of AMRAAMs, possibly some Sparrows. I heard that in the match before this, there was some Sparrow usage. Different defense tactics might be needed for Fox 1. As we sort of alluded to earlier, there is one limitation in the rule set here for your missiles, and it's not the type of missiles, it is the count. When it comes to active missiles, you are allowed a maximum of 4 active missiles. Now, the reason for this being that the JF-17, to make sure that it is fair for pilots flying the JF-17 is limited to only 4 of its SD-10s. Therefore, all of these airframes are limited to 4 active missiles. Now, I am more than sure that our friends here in TMC will be rocking just as many of the AIM-120s as they can. But it's those extra slots teams can to choose what they want to do a little bit. Maybe they take some Sparrows. Maybe they try to reduce the number of pylons on their jet to make sure they maintain more maneuverability, or try to optimize their fuel loading with different tank setups. We've seen all that and more in the past with different teams. So once we get back into DCS, we'll check out what TMC is doing on their end. And do they both have GCI? Yes, they do, Spider. Both teams will be running a GCI these matches. No more data link AWACS magic for them. Now, they do have a bit of an AWACS there, so their GCI can see something, but they will predominantly be getting a lot of their information from GCI, and this actually gives a little bit of an advantage to both teams when it comes to their setup. The GCI has that over-the-top view and is able to direct their own pilots a little bit, in addition to getting direction from their other teammates. You know, hey, I'm in hot, I'm in the beam. You know, hey, your AWACS is going, hey, 3, I need you to turn back in hot. You got a guy at this heading, this bearing. A little bit more information flow there. Indeed, can be a bit interesting to see. Now we're back into DCS. Let's hope it works this time. Make sure it is not laggy for you guys, and see what these guys at TMC are rocking on their airframes. At your own time, DCS, as always. Let's go ahead and take a look at TMC lined up on the runway here. It looks to be just as laggy. Hopefully when we get in the sky, though, it'll be a little bit less laggy. The ground of Syria, of course, not benefiting all too well from the increases of multi-threading here. We have certainly got a lot of AIM-120s and 9Ms here on the Vipers. J11 rocking a few R77s down the center line, but a lot of teams finding maybe not too much benefit out of those R77s. One notice here, this J11, as you guys can see, has wingtip mounted ordnance, which means, unlike, and we'll just take a quick refresh look here at the team over here at 51st. When we take a look at some of their Su-33s, we're all loaded out. You will notice they do not have wingtip mounted ordnance. This gives them a little bit of extra ECM here that they're trying for. And these guys opting to take less Fox 2 close range missiles, saying, look, we've got these really maneuverable Fox 1s. We're going to try and fight you with those. You guys can bring the extra missiles. We're not going to let you guys get close enough. We're going to use the ECM to try and win our long range engagement best we can. Goodness, it is already dark over here for these guys. Somebody here still yet to close their canopy. Looks like we do actually have some of the some of the liveries here for the 51st Kiap guys. Some worked, some didn't. It makes no sense to me. DCS has a mind of his own. Is that Starry Fox 9? It is indeed Starry Fox 9 joining TMC with an F-18, as might be expected. Starry Fox 9 not yet rolling down the runway yet. Take a look at this loadout. This loadout is definitely perhaps one of the more standard loadouts here. Full bags, the most fuel possible. Taking the 4 120s on the wings and 2 spares in the center line with the 9Ms on the wing tips. Starry Fox 9 will be the last one to the runway. Little bit of reorganization, but it seems like TMC is now pleased with how they're set up, just waiting for their final member, Starry Fox 9, and perhaps not. My math seems to be incorrect. It looks like all of the TMC players are here. Not sure what. Perhaps there was some question whether or not somebody would be able to join in or not. I ballparked the missile counts. I think TMC has 42 versus possibly 51st on the Kiap side. You know what? That's a fair thing to do. Let's go ahead and think about that. That, of course, does mean quite a lot like this. F-16 with a maximum of 6 missiles is a limiting factor. It is indeed a limiting factor, made up for by the of course, compared to maybe the F-18. The F-16 has a little bit more of a easy-to-use, quick radar. It looks like both teams are ready. Let's go ahead and give them a countdown in from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fights on right here. Match 2 of this weekend in the knockouts. TMC versus 51st. TMC roaring down the runway in their Vipers first up here. Getting themselves airborne right away. Of course, Kiap probably doing largely the same. It'll be interesting to see how both teams deploy themselves into the field. Of course, here we have 51st Kiap 100th rolling down their runway together. This is a tactic we've seen before, and one that I'm very pleased to see. They use a little bit of staggerance here that they can get both these airframes running down the runway nearly the same time, largely avoiding the wake turbulence. And we'll watch them here as they rotate up, kick their cans in. A little bit of wake turbulence there, but they will easily be able to rejoin that formation. Of course, that is something that these guys over here at 51st 100th are so well known for, is their formation flying. And boy, I do hope the sun stays up enough for us to see things. Our gamma's set low, and we change gamma. We're going to have to crank that gamma. We'll put it up to 2.5 for now to make sure we can see things, but just know for these pilots, it could be a lot darker as they form up here. A little bit of overshooting, perhaps some reshuffling of the formation, and the Su-33s and J-11s are all up over here already for 51st. TMC, all airborne as well. No, the last 2 TMC pilots still waiting on the ground. Looks like they've waited for a little bit longer, and oh boy, is it bright over here with the gamma cranked. I think I preferred seeing a little bit more of that low density. Nice dark. Let's see what they're experiencing. Perhaps lowering some of these settings will increase the frame rate. Gamma 10, indeed, the poor man's night vision. All right, now what do we have here? We've got TMC. Looks like they're set up in 2 pairs. Not pairs of 2. That's how that sentence comes out of your mouth. Pairs of 2 here in their F-16s, up ahead with the J-11 and the F-16 over here with Tail and Death Angel in the back, but setting up in 3 pairs. A bit of delay here makes me wonder what they're doing. Of course, 51st Kiap and the 100th in the dark. Look at those beautiful cans as they fly up, staying together, not so much revealing their plans. We can look at some beautiful formation flying though here. Look at those cans lighting up the dark sky. They still have their lights on, of course. It'll be something here for players to remember. Turn off your lights, guys. You gotta turn off your lights. And hopefully they do. You know what, guys? We're gonna have to end up closing TAC view, I think. Well, no, perhaps that seems to have found itself more stable. And back to less stable. Well, hopefully we'll see if it works. You guys will have to let me know if the frames are still a problem, but it shouldn't change the fighting. Oh, look at these gorgeous afterburners. No point at turning lights unless they split. They're often visible on a radar for sure. Indeed, but, you know, they're still concerned about their merge, right? And I think a lot of these pilots will end up turning off their lights when they get in close, just for that added benefit. You know, yes, I may be venom. Oh, and there we go. These guys turning off their lights in unison. Of course, the level of airmanship we kind of expect out of 51st 100th at this point. Flying in nice formations like these on your way up, we expect you to be able to communicate when you're turning your lights off at the same time. Looks like first into the circle is going to be TMC here. Running in. Quite high. Quite fast. How high, in fact? Look up here at 35,000 feet. They're running up high. These two back here a little bit lower. Perhaps they'll pop up. Looks like maybe setting up a grinder here. Do the F-16s have NVGs and the F-18? I wonder. Capitalist technology for the win. I'm sure they do have their NVGs. I don't believe there is any reason not to include those. Blue takes control of the battle area, forces some of the fighters out of Kiap to run in first. And it looks like the J-11s, I keep saying JF-17, are the first to turn in here. Saying, look, let's get that 4-ship going high. We only need to get at least one aircraft in this circle the way this works. Look, the first people in this circle start a timer 5 minutes from that timer is when this circle gets granted to the victors. Of course, we don't wait for that timer if the other aircrafts are all shot down. We just go ahead and know that they have won the circle. They still have to land, of course, but they have won their circle. TMC getting in here first starts that timer, forces these guys over here on 51st 100th. Hey, okay, look, we can't side climb as much as we wanted to. We're going to have to lose maybe some of that original positioning we wanted to turn in. TMC has sort of played our hand a bit. We can't let them sit for too long inside this circle. Of course, the longer they're inside this circle, not only will the timer be counting down, but as you can see here, look, 51st, not even in the circle. TMC is now making their way in here from this bullseye center point, already 40 miles away from the center, whereas these guys are still 10 miles from getting in. That's giving a lot of ground to TMC that they're able to use, and that allows TMC to set up. Looks, you know, if I were to make an estimate based on the fact that these two units are about 10 miles apart in line, I expect to see a grinder setup here. Essentially what they'll do is they'll plant their feet in the ground, and they'll have two jets running hot, two jets running cold, cycling through, allowing them to keep the pressure up on 51st, but to, you know, hey, force them, look, you can't just grinder us out. We'll both be sitting here burning our fuel. Now, I think 51st is going to try and be a little bit more aggressive, but possibly battle area contested. There we can see 51st 100th have moved themselves into the fight here, and looks like the 33s able to get up 34,000, you know, still quite high as they turn in, running those gates. A little bit of formation break there from that last man, but hey, you practice to be perfect, but you can't always fight perfect. These guys look like they're actually turning in pure here for their targets, not trying to set up a little bit of a cross box, but much high. As you can see, everybody here is high in altitude. Our lowest altitude being 27,000 means these missiles are going to have quite the range to them, and that's something that 51st has been using to their advantage, especially with home on jam, having the ability to home to loft with their missiles now. The R-27 ERs, that extended range variant, really reaching out. We've seen some incredibly long shot plays from these teams here in the past. I'm probably going to see that again. Let's go ahead and take a look at the, let's take a look at both the TAC view and the DCS here. Get an idea for what these guys are doing. We can get an idea for how visually, just how much height these players have as they start running in here. And you can see just how close these guys are together, possibly here. You know, lot ATC might be able to sort these guys separately, might not. So GCIs might be having a bit of a difficulty going, hey, we can estimate that there's a 2-ship and a 4-ship. We've seen how these guys work in the past. But hey, is that exactly what they're doing? And we see, okay, 2 aircraft turning here. Not looking like they're setting up a grinder, looking like a little bit of a deploy here. Perhaps 4-ship deploy. Be interesting to see here as they may be trying to go into the skirt. No missiles launched yet. No missiles that they're defending. These guys taking a bit of a more difficult turn here, going into that 90. Setting themselves up in that beam here. Trying to maybe beam the radar or these guys' radar as well. Now, TMC now starting to see a little bit of the playbook here out of 51st, 100th. Frosty and Rich breaking off in the Su-33s now. Sort of getting themselves developed. Still keeping this 2-ship nice and tight, but starting to break up into 3 groups of 2 as well. We'll see how that goes from here. Perhaps seeing a wall formed from this group, but perhaps not. I don't think that's how I would normally see a wall deployed. So perhaps trying to stay, you know, up close. Let's not worry about our distance here. And this turn here, you can see a little bit of more energy burned here, but they're definitely trying to skirt. You can see a lot of team coordination here. I mean, look how nice and symmetrical these lines are here. A little bit of G-force difference between Gamble and Fresh, but, you know, none the same. They're both now running into the beam. Off to the north side here. Very interested to see what these 2 teams decide to do. Takenum and Cali here joining these guys. Look, hey, you're going to notch us. We're going to notch you. All right, Fresh and Gamble going up forward now. Dauber and Rattle are turning back in a little bit. We can see now, looks like, okay, we've got Death Angel and Tail here in the back. Pixel and Stinger maybe perhaps unengaged. You can see, we'll go back and check. Look at this TAC. You can see the altitude advantage that these guys has as they scream up in altitude. Now even more, breaking off once again. Now we've got a bit of a deploy here. Perhaps we're going to see a lot of the same thing. Oh, and we get our first shot here out of Rich, an R-27ER. Looks like this could be on Dauber as Dauber turned back in hot. Rich way up in altitude when he fires this thing off. I mean, we're looking at quite high, almost 50,000 feet. That's very high. Let's watch this missile streak in here. Ooh, in that dark sky. Range about 1 billion. Between Dauber and Rich. It was probably around 40 miles at launch. Not the farthest we've seen, but oh, and more R-27s with a return AIM-120C here out of Gambler. Starting to get on. Let's see if any of these missiles hit. This missile's looking good, but Rich seems to have turned into the beam here. Now, of course, this is a Fox 1, which means this missile has lost its track, but hey, he already got Dauber to turn cold. That's what he wanted. You can hear the jet nearby, but it's not enough. The missile does lose track and won't kill him. Looks like none of the other missiles hit. We still have all of our airframes up, and we can take a look. Let's see how they react to that fight. We have one AIM-120, you know, running after tech here, but probably won't be a problem. We'll bring it back real quick, and you can see, look, turn in, fire, turn cold. Everybody's working together. Now the fight starts to flow north here. 51st kind of has the ability to turn in. If they all take a left turn here, they can actually get into a bit of a wall. It looks like perhaps they're running out. Of course, not the most distance in the world here, so they're probably concerned at 30 miles. They definitely expect, look, when we go hot, we can expect to get an AIM-120 right in our face. TMC knows hard, cold, and run from those ERs. Indeed, don't let those ERs use their amazing speeds. Another ER here out of Cali. Up here in the north, 35,000 feet, a little bit closer, a little bit lower. The missile's still got time to run, though. Who could this be on? Perhaps on Rattler, who was hot for a minute, but immediately turns cold to defend that missile. No issues there. Stinger off on his own a little bit. Oh, this is close. AIM-120C at a Gambler on Frosty. I mean, both these aircraft are very close. My goodness, it's dark out there. That is an 8-mile launch. That missile might be Pitbull off the rails. Boy, that's a close fight. Gambler turning cold. I mean, both of them turning cold. Second, supporting R-27ER here out from Cali. The AIM-120 loses lock. It does. Both aircraft lose lock on their targets. Those missiles both go stupid. No, in fact, the AIM-120 did not go stupid. Spending a bit more energy. Looks like it was going for Rich. Still is going for Rich. Might have expended too much energy here. Getting all the way up. You can see it's a little bit low on that Mach number now. Rich almost has the same Mach number. That missile is good as defeated. Some more AIM-120Cs here out from Death Angel and Rattler. Coming in on Tech. R-77, of course, this, unlike the R-27s, this is an active missile. It will be able to lock and follow. Rattler is low and pretty slowing, 0.7 Mach. That's not very quick at all. You can see, on the other hand, Kiev high but fast. Their lowest Mach, 0.88 and climbing, turning their altitude into speed to get away with some of these maneuvers they have to do. Kiev fires a missile out from Cali. R-27 here screaming in. Missile seems to have gone stupid off the rails. Unfortunately, the lock wasn't good enough. AIM-120 here close to Tech, but once again, no energy. A lot of these missiles fired and defeated. Next up here, Fresh running in. It's got that burner. Are we going to see a missile launch from Fresh here as he tries to close the distance? Looks like possibly a sort here on Tech, but Frosty is close. Rich in support. Cali very close. Oh, this could be a C-fit. He's really low. Oh, he's got the altitude. Goes into the supersonic there. I mean, you can just see, look, you can, I'm not sure if it's coming across on your end, guys, but the trees are starting to show up. That's how low he's getting here, dealing with these missiles. 2,000 feet. Oh, white right there. We had a crash. What was it? Gamble. R-27 from, looks like Black Pixel, possibly Rich. Eats it in the face. That is the first kill. 51st Kiev takes the first. Ooh, do we have a second one here on Death Angel? Doesn't look like he can outrun it, and he can't. Not enough. That is now 2 down on TMC. No losses for 51st. A little bit of a grinder setup here. Rattler was cold, now hot. Could be defending something. No missile that needs to be defended. Launch here on possibly Fresh out of this higher pair here. But Rattler isn't low and isn't out of the fight. Fast 120. Oh, low. Tech could be in trouble here. A little bit low. Kind of. Oh, but he does get the trade here. R-27 out of. Oh, it does look like out of Tech. Does take Dauber. This missile does look threatening. Is able to defeat it, though. If we speed forward back in real time. Missile launch here out of Rattler. It's getting hectic. The R-27, does it have lock? Rich looks like he maintains a lock all the way through, but the R-27 doesn't quite have it. And that is a hit. Rich down. First kill for TMC. They are down to, you know, a 2v5, but still a kill nonetheless, and they're still close. Tail defending missiles. Lots of missiles out. Rattler has a missile here from Tech. Doesn't seem like that missile from Tech had a good lock, but the missile from Black Pixel sure does. And is tracking Rattler. Not running fast enough here. I think this could be a kill. In the blind spot, he might have thought he didn't have an RWR contact, but missile did hit him here. Now we have, of course, 5 members of 51st here tracing down the final member in the J11. Look at those large cans. Rip loud and proud here. A little bit of low altitude here. Frosty and Tech, you know, maybe choosing to burn off a little bit of their altitude. You know, we can bring that fight back as after this last one here ends, but perhaps a bit more altitude loss than they needed to. Flankers on flankers, how SATAC is meant to be played. Indeed, it is nice to see some of the aircraft fighting their same. Tail definitely running, perhaps trying to make use of these mountains here, trying to get himself lower, making it a bit more difficult to be spotted. Of course, as we've mentioned before, now he's running back into these mountains. But no, Tech's staying low. Now we got 3 aircraft low. I mean, their highest aircraft, Black Pixel, here at 22,000 feet. You know, maybe they're saying, look, we don't totally need these altitude advantages. But on a nighttime map like this, I mean, look, if they haven't cranked their gamma, this is what they see. I would be doing just this. I'd be climbing. I don't want to be fighting in these mountains. You know, Tail staying low. I mean, I know these mountains aren't as tall as some of the ones in Caucasus, but look, I would be a little bit scared of the ground myself without night vision in my airframe. Of course, if they crank their gamma, they sure can see a lot. But look, I mean, it's pitch black and very difficult to see. But we'll take a look here. Look, if we were going to do the gamma cranked value, yeah, up here 3.5 gamma, you can see it really lightens up the sky, and they still will be able to see quite well. But we like that mood lighting here down about 1.6. Do you have to land at your own base? You do indeed have to land at your own base. You cannot land at any airfield. Dragging them away from their base, they can't RTB. Possibly, but, you know, considering he's in a 1v5, I would expect, especially with the altitude Black Pixel has here, we got a couple missile launches out. These R-77s, that R-77 once again proving to be a little bit just too short range to have much use, but this R-27 is screaming in here. You know, considering they have a GCI, I wouldn't think that running away to try and drag their fuel out to force a tie is really a feasible reality here, because all you need is that GCI to go, hey, this flight, this two ship or this one dude, just start RTBing, just get up high, start conserving fuel. You know, we've seen this before actually in some of the first weeks of fights out here. We saw some impressive communication between a team where they went, look, we've got the advantage. They took one of their Jeffs, I think it was SPQR if I'm not mistaken. They put that Jeff up in altitude and said, look, just fly up at altitude, conserve your fuel, don't get in the fight, because, you know, either we'll run them out of missiles, we'll run them out of fuel, or we'll kill them ourselves. You hold it up there, and we'll get you back in the fight later. This is a blazing fast R-27ER here out on tail. Tail getting low to the ground. Dumping flares. Does not, unfortunately, make it. Ooh, a little bit of lag there. That burning carcass falls to the ground. Unable to defend. Of course, now it's time for 51st to go ahead and land. Now, as we did mention, there are many airfields around the area, but they are required to land at this specific airfield at Sinlurfa. Of course, they have a TACAN to use, and some decorational SA2s just to be nice. Some carrier seamen here as well to make it look like a real airfield, but indeed that is not the point of the mission. It's just to make people feel good about getting this far in the map. We can already see, look at this, already kind of in. Here's a wall here, Black Pixel to run out, but of course Black Pixel high in altitude here. Very well coordinated that all their planes are, you know, near enough to each other. Looks like Frosty rejoining here on Stinger, Tech and Callie working together here to exfil, and we'll see these guys get into their fantastic formation. But before we get there, let's go ahead and take a look at the TAC view. Let's watch that back, because there was some stuff that we missed. So glad that 51st dragged out by tail. We can get coffee. Indeed, time for a little bit of a reprieve here between the two fights as they take more time to land. But let's run this back to the beginning. Of course, as we saw, TMC was the first to get in, and we saw some good flying characteristics out of TMC here, keeping their Mach numbers really high. Gamble up here 1.4. Wow, he was really running. Teams pushing in now. Breaking off here, the first missile here out of Rich, and we've got a little bit of a deploy here. So Rich and Stinger doesn't see anybody in front of him, but if he could, Stinger and Rich could fire. They go into the crank, and then they go into the beam. Now, interesting to go into the beam so early, but I guess they're defending against Fox 3s in their mind. They can't, you know, guide their missiles to hit all the way, of course, with the R-27 being a Fox 1. That means it is a semi-active radar missile. It needs to be guided all the way to the target. It doesn't have its own radar to take over at some point. But as these two turn out, you can see Black Pixel and Frosty turning back in, turning hot. We have, of course, this AIM-120. Wow, you know what? This AIM-120C here on Tech is extremely close here. Tech almost bites the dust. In fact, perhaps we're looking at some desync, because that missile looks like it even hit Tech. Perhaps not. How close was that at its closest? This missile here, and where is our Shenyang J-11? 420 feet. Okay, so no, it was defeated. It didn't have the airspeed. You can see Mach 1.02. Couldn't have made that connection, but still, you know, this is a pretty threatening missile for relatively limited maneuvering here at attack. I mean, 420 feet is not the distance you want to defeat a missile at. You probably want to have a little bit more defeat there, because you were maybe a half second off, and maybe some of this wing waggling he's doing is to try and drag out that missile a bit. But, you know, very close missile there. From... Who was this missile from? This missile is from... Gamble here actually fires and turns cold, and this missile basically, like we saw here, launches very close and is able to go pitbull off the rails almost, so that missile's internal tracker is seeking. Now, Callie and Tech up here don't have the mutual support that these guys have organically, but they do still have support from their teammates. Next set of missile launches out here. We see some very close range fighting. Really what's unfortunate here is we see that, let's take a look at Gamble here for a minute. Not to single anybody out, but just that's the next missile launch. We do not see as much altitude as I perhaps would have liked to have seen. Let's see if we can't get their altitude displayed somehow. And it would not surprise me if after spending my time learning this, I then forgot how to get our altitude enabled. Unfortunate. But okay, we can still see here, look. Lower in altitude by default than tech. And Cali comes in, fires this missile. This is good. A defense here, a hard defense. Probably not the defense they needed. They probably could have gone into the beam. Unfortunately, I mean, Gamble here, probably what they're saying is, look, Gamble, you're way too close. But what he's doing here is he's trading some of that altitude that he has into speed. Still, you know, loses, goes sub-Mach here. Turns probably a bit hard. This is probably about an 8 or a 9G turn. You can get away with about a 5G turn to defeat a missile. But gain some of his speed back. Turns down again. Look, he wants to keep his speed up, which is good. But what it means is, look at this fight here. Right here's what we're going to talk about for a minute. Him and Frosty here. Look at Frosty up. 10 miles. This is very close. Missile's out. Missile, unfortunately, I think ends up going for Rich, as we said. But look, had this missile had a good lock on Frosty, what would have let Frosty defeat this missile, what would have been the biggest threat to Gamble, is the altitude difference. Look, there's a lot more. Of course, coming in, Mach 1.3 already has more energy in that regards. And being higher, it's not in Gamble's favor. Had Gamble been able to maintain altitude a little bit better and said, look, okay, at this point in time, I'm not launched on. No one's launched on me. I don't have pass through from these missiles. I can maintain my altitude. I can just go and gate. We'll keep our speed up that way and maintain some altitude. Climbed back on this cold run here. You know, could have climbed out some more altitude. Maintained altitude. He'd have been about probably a good 10,000 feet higher than he is here. Would have been on par with Frosty. Would have made that far more threatening, and that missile could have been a kill. But of course, does do a fantastic defeat on that return R-27, and Stinger here almost in trouble. That missile gets really close, but does. This is a pretty decent defense here. Probably didn't need to pull cold like they do here. Probably could have kept that in the beam. Kept that pull, missile would have been defeated. About 5 Gs, like we said earlier, about all you need there. We see, of course, our first loss here on TMC as they eat a missile from the moon. Really comes out, man, that thing is booking it. Almost, yep. And here we see, we call this dropping bombs a little bit, is what we've referred to it in the past in these fights. Look at just the altitude difference between Black Pixel and Gamble. This missile is ripping it in. Gamble doesn't even react. Probably might even be coming in from the dead zone. But look, I mean, look how much speed and energy this has. There's almost nothing Gamble can do to defeat it because of their low altitude. And that's what we see 51st and 100th do so well. I mean, look at what a commanding altitude Black Pixel is running the show at from up here. Making the use of, look, I might have to only use Fox 1s, but another one here. Look, all right, missile launch out here on Death Angel. Death Angel defends this missile and is starting to go cold here. And it just, I mean, look at that. This missile is ripping in Mach 2. Even had Death Angel been going at about the fastest this airplane can go in this altitude, which isn't much faster than he is now, you cannot outrun the fact that this missile has almost gained energy the entire way through its fight. I know we're looking at its Mach number going down, and I know that technically because it's lowering in altitude, it is losing some energy, but it has been burning in downhill. It has never had to fight gravity once this entire engagement, and that thing just rips in from space. Of course, we lose our final pilot, Fresh, here, coming back in. Okay, cold. We saw Fresh ended up having to lose a lot of altitude here, getting way down in the dirt to defeat. Okay, does have to do this to defeat this R-27 here out from Rich, I believe. Yeah, Rich's R-27 here. Does have to defeat it. But look, here's the same thing. Rich doesn't turn cold. Looks, hey, I don't have a missile on me. which actually surprisingly, no, I don't know, this missile kind of goes on its own little rigmarole. But look, I don't have a missile on me. I don't need to turn cold. Pushes in hot and gets that follow-up missile shot. Yeah, you outran the first one, but I get one off back at you. TMC Rattler does get a kill on Rich here, and this is a very good kill. Look what Rattler's doing. Look, I'm coming in, but I'm gaining altitude. Yes, I'm gaining speed, but I need that altitude. I want the extra range from these missiles, and I want to be a little bit more on parity, right? 51st has lost some of their altitude throughout the fight. Now's a good time, if I can, to regain some of it, and Rattler does a great job. Up above, above Mach 1, gets a little bit more altitude, fires. Now, what is Rattler's distance to Rich here? 8 mile. Yep. Nope. This is perfectly acceptable here out of Rattler, and you can see it gets Rattler to kill. I'm super close. I don't need to guide this missile in. There's only one target here. It's Rich. I'm going to immediately break because I know he's got a missile out on me. This R-27, of course, tearing in. Breaks out cold, goes into the notch, goes into the beam. Actually, might possibly have notched the missile ever so slightly, but does look like he might have notched it. Runs the missile out, lets his missile's active radar do the work. Rich, of course, has to defend a little bit harder. He's trying to maintain this lock, right? Even still here, he's got a lock on Rattler, trying to get that missile in. Of course, at this point, the missile is missed, but look, he's got his nose angled towards it. It's high off bore sight, but it's still there, trying to get that missile to hit. Misses. And unfortunately for Rich, it's probably that aggressiveness here to get that kill that ends up getting him killed. Had he gone into a traditional full-on defense, he probably wouldn't have died, but he wouldn't have been able to guide that missile in all the way. And of course, you do want that kill. Rattler is able to get the one kill off, but unfortunately, we see Black Pixel up here once again. High in altitude. Now, not the highest, and of course, you can see recently, Black Pixel dropping this bomb on Death Angel does lose a lot of altitude in this maneuver, but it's okay. Turns back in, fires that missile off at Rattler, and that's sort of all she wrote. Then, of course, they ended up chasing him out and making their way back to land, which they still haven't. Let's go ahead and watch their landing. Of course, one of the fun rules about SATAC here is that they must land their airframes. If they do not land their airframe at the runway, it is considered a loss. But, of course, with this many opportunities to land, I sure would hope to see a landing here out of somebody. You got 5 options. Yes, it's dark, but crank your gamma up. Boy, is it dark. They've got their lights back on. Let's see if we can't use the lights to spot the other ships. It doesn't look like it. I certainly can't see anybody. Nothing better than a night landing. Indeed, we've seen, you know what? We've seen a couple complicated landings here now. The night landing is complicated, but there is TACAN, there is ILS, there is putting your gamma all the way up, there is runway lights. But it is a little bit more difficult than a daytime landing, and a lot of DCS pilots will only practice those daytime landings. But we have not seen just nighttime difficulties with landing here in SATAC. This isn't even the first nighttime landing we've seen. There is, of course, the match that takes place on the Persian Gulf map that runs into the evening. Not quite as dark as this, but a little bit dark enough that when the fight goes long, you can have to land in the darkness, land in the nighttime. We've seen lands in clouds all the way down to sea level. In fact, I believe it was TMC in one of their preliminary matches. That was the team that had to land in clouds so low, in fact, that they were struggling to find the runway and had to use a little bit of the stream delay to help them land, from what I hear. But of course, they had mostly sorted it out themselves. And when you get into low altitudes, it's more than capable to land. Coming in here, looks like Tech might be coming in first. We might see a formation landing here at a 51st. These guys do practice worst case scenario a lot, I would have to assume. See if they can't organize themselves into a good landing. Stinger, Frosty, and Pixel coming in the follow here. Maybe a break. We do have an air breakout. I know it's hard to see here. There they go. They can see their runway. They've got landing lights. These guys now have no excuse. You know, sometimes the landing lights might not have their landing lights on in runways. Sometimes, you know. But These guys have their landing lights on. They have no excuse but to make a good landing. Maybe an overhead brake here. Definitely not on final, not with that approach. Even the F-18 is looking at that going, man, you are way too high. No, he does have his gear out. Boy, this is quite the high approach. Maybe I am maybe I'm a little bit confused about the Su-33, the J-11 landing profile, but this seems like a very high final. Well, perhaps I'm just used to my Western aircraft instead. See if we can't get a nice view of these guys coming into land. I can't even find them. There they are. The edge of this runway here. Coming in for a landing. Well, this is an interesting bug. I don't believe there's an aircraft here, as much as the game would like there to be one. It seems to have forgotten some of the locations of their afterburners. You can see them over there as well. First two aircraft do make their touchdown. Unfortunately, a little bit distracted by that new bug. Once again, hold on, where were those other ones? But it does look like, look, as these guys were flying out, the game has sort of left a little bit of a ghost of their afterburner trail. That's a new one. First two shipped down, though. That does mean 51st is confirmed to take the win here in the first round, of course. This is best 2 out of 3, so this is not a permanent victory. There will be time for TMC to bring it back, possibly going into a third round. For round 2, we will, of course, see here Frosty. It's like Frosty might be coming in on final here. This is a landing approach I'm much more familiar with, a lot lower altitude. I'm still not quite over the little, like, burner plumes that exist. Very strange bug, but hey, I'm mostly pleased with multi-threading as a whole. Frosty doing it the old school way. I'm a fan of the old school way. I'm a fan of that brake come around. Do have a little bit of a close landing here. One in, Frosty kind of right in behind, but look, they've verbalized this out in the team. This, again, some of this more communicative flying styles here. One said, hey, we're both in, I'll land right, you land left. That way we don't get into each other's wake turbulence. Make sure Frosty doesn't get in anybody's wake turbulence. Frosty puts it down. Of course, our final pilot here coming in for a landing. Looks like they're more than a way. Can you increase the gamma? Is that all the way up? No, it is nice and low. I actually left it. Oh, this is another interesting bug. That's not the direction the landing light's facing. We can, we'll increase the gamma for the next round. I wanted to just sort of bask in the glory of the darkness here. All right. Yeah, interesting that landing light, hopefully for them, oh, yep, landing light's back to normal. All right, but all those players are set. The server will reset and the teams will switch. Blue, or well, not blue. TMC will now be spawning over here on the east, and on the west side, of course, is where we will find 51st, the inverse of what we just saw. As teams get themselves ready for round 2. It's a feature. You're right. Of course. Not a bug. It's a feature. They don't need to see the middle of the runway because they only need to know where the edges are. If they know where the edge of the runway is, they know where the middle is. It's of course. I'm just being silly. Why would I think the landing light should face forward? Now a little bit maybe desync. Of course, multi-threading is still a recent patch, although I'm sure we've all had time to enjoy the boon that was multi-threading more than once over. Ooh, let me make sure I have the password still. Must keep it a secret. No one is allowed to know the password for SATAC except for those fighting in it. Get back in the match and watch now. As we get into round 2, here's a couple things. Just a little refresher, and for those of you who haven't seen these fights before, just a little touch of the rule set. Now these teams are going to switch sides, as we just mentioned, of course. 51st will now be spawning at the west, and TMC will be spawning at the east, but there's some other rules to remember. Now, loadouts do not lock in, but the players are locked in, and they're locked into their airframe. So TMC can't go, you know what, I wish we had an F-18 for some ducks, or you know what, I wish we had a JF-17 for its jammer or its data link. They're not allowed to do that anymore. They are locked in. 5 F-16s, 1 J-11. Same thing. 51st Kiev is locked in. 4 Su-33s, 2 J-11s. Now, I don't think that there would be any change in 51st, even if they were allowed to, but they are stuck with those airframes. There will be no change, but of course, ordnance is up to change. Now, again, I think 51st and 100th Kiev, they know their loadouts. They fly their doctrine. So I don't think we'll see much change out of them, but we will certainly check. TMC, on the other hand, look, they flew pretty typical loadouts, but maybe there could be a bit of a change. Oh, interesting. You're not joking. I didn't know. You know, I was just assuming it was a little bit of a bug. I didn't even realize it. That is interesting that it's a stage of the light to see the edge of the runway. I personally would never use that. Here we see the Vipers getting ready. So now what that really means here is, look, especially in a map like this in the early stages of the fight, these Vipers were able to turn on their night visions probably a little bit earlier. If they chose to run their night visions, they could have said, "No, we want the JHEMX. We'd rather have that extra situational awareness, and we'll lose the nods." But if they run their nods, now that they're on this side of the map, they're on the east side, it's going to take them a little bit longer to be able to put those nods on, because they will be flying into the setting sun. So they will have light behind, they will have light in front of them longer. So for visual acquisition, it might actually be a little bit easier for these guys. Round 2 started. Round 2, we have the first taxi for round 2 here at a TMC with no ordnance on. Just getting right to it. These guys are going in all guns. Missiles unnecessary. Only J11 is going to bring missiles. Everybody else is just running with the guns. Now, I'm sure he'll be sorting himself out there. We'll take a look at how 51st is doing. Here they are. I couldn't find them for a minute. Whew. Look at those shiny airplanes. A little bit of that. Unfortunately, the nice high-quality map does lag a tad. They're getting themselves all sorted out, loaded in. The most important part of today's stream, landing lights. No. Of course, we're just joshing here. A little bit of tail waggling out there. Having some fun from the J11s, or maybe they're just doing a controls wipeout. All right. We'll see how they do. Now, if these guys largely the same ordnance setup, unless maybe they decide to bring more ETs, but I really doubt that. I mean, these guys get so much use out of their ERs, so much more than the ETs. I think they'd be mostly focusing on those ETs as they line in here. What are some things that we could see differently done out of TMC? Of course, you know, when you lose that first fight, you're the most likely to sit down and go, okay, how do I do better? What do I need to change, right? Now, first up, TMC could defend a little bit less. We mentioned this when we were breaking down the TAC view. We'd like to see a little bit less altitude loss out of TMC. Maintain that altitude, maintain that energy. Stay on parity with TMC. Now, that is a little bit difficult for these guys. One of the things about the Viper is it really doesn't want to fly at 40,000 feet, especially with bags and missiles. It's got small wings, right? It's meant to be nimble, not to be high and fast. That is going to kind of hurt the Viper a little bit in this situation by choosing it over something like the F-18, which can be a little bit higher in altitude. Of course, things like the Su-27 family and the F-15 family can be outrageously high, way up in the sky. Probably not so much for the F-16, so they won't be able to maintain their energy so much. And they won't be able to... they won't be able to keep all their altitude in those turns. Perhaps they're going to have to lose some of it, and that's maybe why they chose, look, let's break down. Now, they turned hard, probably harder than they needed to, but they probably are saying, look, we got to get this turn done. We don't want to finish this turn at 0.5 Mach, right? We could be real slow, falling out of the sky. They don't want that. They're probably going to end up saying, all right, look, let's lose a little bit of altitude, but we'll go into the fight. We'll start high. Let's lose less altitude, guys. Let's keep this altitude drop that we have. I mean, they're losing, maybe 5,000 feet per turn. 3 defenses in, you're already at 15,000 feet, right? And the biggest thing for these guys, I think, that they could do when you're flowing cold, pitch up. Gain some altitude on that exit, right? Even if it's, look, we lose 5,000, we gain 4,000. Well, you've only, lost 1,000 in that turn. Now, the turn back in can be a little bit slower. They don't have to defensively turn when they're turning back hot, so they can keep their airspeed high by not losing, just by making a lower G turn. But not quite the best instance to lose altitude in that realm. Yeah, that's really it. Really what I'd like to see from TMC here is keep their altitude. Keep their airspeed up, keep their altitude up, and run the fight that way. Thinking I'm on break. Unfortunately, no, Rum Runner, I am here. I am talking. I hope you guys can hear me. Otherwise, I'll have just said a whole spiel for nothing. Not that there was too much in that spiel. TMC here making full use of the runway. We hear you. All right. Well, already 51st is ready. We'll see there. Largely expect to see. Yep, mostly the same setup here. Not what? Yep. Nope. This is the same setup as we saw before. Rich and Stinger, Frosty. We can see the way these guys are laid out on the runway. And this kind of gives a little bit of a credence to what I was talking about earlier. What we can see here, we see Rich up here in the front and Rich's wingman here in the middle. Probably could be a little bit more to the left, but hey, we're not looking for picture perfect on a flight like this. This is more about the fight taking off, do the best you can, but it's not worth all the headache right now. These two are going to be able to take off at the same time. Now, shortly after, normally you've got to wait a little bit longer for your next airplanes to take off because there is wake turbulence, and that's going to make it a lot more difficult to take off, especially when you're taking off in formation. But this little bit of staggering means there's actually going to be a channel of clean air for both number 3 and number 4. They're going to be able to take off very quickly. They're going to be able to use their own afterburners, or they can take off in mill as they decide. Essentially what this means is if it's done right, by the time you get to the end of the runway, you're finger 4. It is a fantastic way to get up in the air with a 4-ship very fast, in finger 4, able to go right into formation. Nothing but butter. And we see here it even works the next step up. Look, because they are staggered directly in a line, 5 and 6, after that first 4-ship are up, they're going to be able to take off very early easy. No issues. Because that wake turbulence will have abided. So that normal delay that a team might have between their first pair and their second pair, that's the delay that 51st is going to have between their first pair and their last pair. This is a fantastic takeoff method. 51st is kind of the only guys that we've seen use it, which is okay. I'd like to see it used more. It's something that I've been trained on myself to use, simply for just the fact that it's very simple, very effective. It takes off nice easy. Everyone's in formation. You're up fast. You can spend more time getting yourselves into the fight, or more time deploying north, for example. They could deploy south, but we've seen 51st likes to take their time to get into the airspace. They want to get that altitude. They want to be laterally correct. However they decide that it is to be laterally correct. They want to have that lateral disposition that they're looking for, and they're willing to spend some time outside of that circle to get it. So by being able to take off quickly and be in formation quickly, there's less time spent, oh, lead's got to be off burner so that the other two can catch up. The moment they hit the end of that runway, they can just go full gate and get themselves where they need to be. TMC over here, getting the last of their aircraft ready to line up. And here we see that this is a little bit of the older style, the more traditional style. Kind of not so much an elephant walk. Everybody's in line, and there is going to be wake turbulence. Now, we've seen Wolfpack in the past be able to say, look, yeah, there's wake turbulence. We don't care. We're going to take off quick, and we'll just fight the wake turbulence, and that way they can get themselves up nice and quick. TMC might spend a little bit more time getting themselves down the runway. Let that wake turbulence, subside a little bit. Not something that's going to hurt them too much. Rich International been doing touch and goes in the last week. 22, interesting. Very interesting. An F5 and an SU-22. Don't know where that came from. Could be stuff from an air show, perhaps. Do always love a little bit of real-world aviation, of course. That's what interests us the most out here. And TMC is ready. Let's get right into the fight. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fight's on. TMC rolling down the runway with their first two right away. We are going to end up watching 51st Key App again. I just am so impressed with that takeoff style that I just want to watch it again. I want to see him do an expertly done takeoff here. We'll see these first two are rolling. If you can make them out here on your screens, they get down the runway, staying glued to one another's wingtip. Outside of wake turbulence zone, but they're up nice and early. And the other pair is already rolling. These guys only just have their wheels off the ground. These guys have already been rolling. They'll be able to get up here. Once again, looks like choosing not to be in burner. Get up airborne. There we go. We see the first touch of burner here. These guys are going to start closing the distance to their other two teammates. And once again, look at how quickly these guys are able to get airborne. Very fast. They are all up. Now, TMC taking off quickly, but look, TMC, like we said, look, these guys just got airborne. That's that gap between that first group and that second group. We just saw 51st had all their guys airborne. So like we said, these guys are able to get up, what's that, about 60% faster? 30% faster, about 60% of the time that it takes for a normal 6 flight to get up. 51st is able to get up right away, which is one of their strong suits. TMC choosing to go. It looks like they're actually going for the shortest route into this. This could be an interesting choice here. Now, if they're doing what I think they're doing, rather than going for, some people will say, look, we won't turn, we'll just take off and fly straight, and that'll be how we'll gain, it gives us a kind of a triangle, right? A little bit longer time. It's a short time to get into the cycle, into that circle, into the fight, to start that countdown, but we get more time to gain airspeed and altitude. Looks like TMC, what they're doing here is saying, look, let's go. We're going to take a right hand immediately. We are going for the quickest route into this circle. By doing that, that gives 51st 100th the least amount of time to get themselves up to altitude. We see Black Pixel here, a little bit separated out from their flight. Of course, supposed to be up here in the other 4 ship of Su-33s. But still need to actually get there. We'll see. Let's take a look. Let's take a look on TAC view and see how this fight is developing. And it's developing right away. We can see up high in altitude, TMC with Fresh Gamble, Dobbler, and Death Angel. Everybody really here, Rattler, they're all running in fast, and they're trying to gain their altitudes. Now, you can see here a little bit of altitude deviation between Dobbler and Rattler versus their flight leads, of course, being Fresh and Gamble. At least I assume that's their flight leads. And that's why they're setting up like this, so that, it's 1 and 3, 2 back here with Rattler, and 4 being Dauber. But might not be, worth double checking. But look, they're getting in, they're getting up, and they're going fast. They want to contest that fight zone as quick as possible, forcing 100th, who was able to use their advantage of getting in the air fast to get themselves formed up and ready very quick. But look, they're, let's check out both screens here. You'll see they're really not close to the fight. TMC is already in the circle, and that is going to start a timer for these guys. They're now going to need to go, look, we're not at the altitude we want to be at. Now, are we going to risk? We've got 5 minutes to get in that circle, right? Red is just taking control of that battle area. Do these players do something about it? Do they turn in, or do they stay? Look, we want to gain our altitude. It'll be fine. It looks like they're turning in. Now, 21,000. It's not a bad altitude, and they can still take time to gain altitude, but they're going to push in. They're going to get in. They're going, okay, fine. You want to call us in first. We'll get in fast, but wow, 32,000 feet. These guys are basically up at their altitudes that they're going to operate at their maximum. Anything higher on the Viper is struggling. These guys are probably sitting there with their full afterburners blowing as much as they can. 25,000. Interestingly enough, yeah, TMC now has more altitude than 51st. Of course, this will eventually change, but it looks like TMC's going, look, we needed that altitude to get up into the fight better, That's what we were missing the first time around. We're going to gun it in high and fast. And once again, look, we're going to be aggressive. We're not going to let them dictate the fight, because we know that if we stay out the fight longer, worst case scenario for any team fighting 51st is for 51st to take advantage of getting in that cap circle first, because what that means is they had enough time to get into position the way they wanted to. They've got their altitude, they've got their speed, and they've got their spread. And that can be scary. But right here looks like, hey, that's fine. We'll run. Interestingly enough, I was actually expecting these guys here. We can take a look at the TAC view of it a little bit more, and you'll notice that, look, I was expecting these guys to turn directly. You can actually kind of see they started out turning directly hot into the circle. Then they decided, no, let's spread out a little bit more. It's definitely an interesting tactic. Perhaps trying to do something of a cross block or force these guys. Now they're turned in here. Very interesting. Looks like, hey, we see that this flight of 4, they can probably assume either they're able to identify that there are 4 different aircraft, or they're just able to identify based on, okay, we can assume they're having the 4 ship go higher, the 2 ship turn in first. They're going, okay, we need to skate a little bit. They're not crossing this bullseye line. Almost turned into a very interesting north-south fight here, but TMC still pushing in. Interested to see their defensive skills from TMC. Indeed, hopefully we'll see TMC defend. They were very good about defending last time. Wow, these two up here are fast. They're definitely going to want to get some early launches, probably a 40-mile launch between first launch and its target. In fact, we can even see here, look, these guys are now within 80 miles. This is about commit time, starting to work themselves out. Now, it looks like, very interestingly, they have boxed themselves up in such a manner that the fight is sort of going to happen to their sides, right? These guys are going to have the fight on their right-hand side. These guys are going to have their fight on the right-hand side as well. Both teams could very easily fly past each other. This isn't quite a vector for intercept off these guys. As currently stated, right? It looks like a vector for intercept now. But the thing is, we've got these two aircraft are ripping and tearing. Oh, it might actually be a very good vector for intercept. I take that back. These guys definitely are intercepted. But look, what that doesn't change is the fact that Cali and Tech here, they are far away from this fight, right? Their distance, had they been head-on right now, they would have fired those missiles. But they're basically twice that distance, choosing to go around the edge. Possibly what we see here, this 2-ship, supported by the 2-ship back here, is going to push and... Wow, they're very spread out here. Tail and Death Angel might be sorted on Cali and Tech. Okay, that could be what we see happen there. But very interested to see how this ends up deploying out. Now, we'll probably see a beam deploy to the right. Does AWACS quality degrade closer to the 51st fight for TMC? I wonder if the GSCI will start losing picture. I do believe so. I don't know if at this altitude with an aircraft of this size, if it is degraded, but I do believe that your GCI does lose stuff the further away from their own radar it is. Now, okay, what do we see here? A left deploy from Tech and Cali. Very interesting. really trying to widen out that cross block and seeing that, hey, look, we're not really seeing a ton of engagement. Now, possibly they can't see Tail and Death Adler, like we just said, if they can't see the another left deploy. This is very strange. I was expecting a right deploy here out of Frosty and Stinger so that Frosty and Black Pixel, Rich and Stinger go in. You know, they're not really hot on anybody. Gambler gets rid of his... Now, what's going on here? Look at this altitude loss. Why? And first missile out here from Stinger. You could have gotten a return missile off had you not decided to lose that altitude. And once again, wow, that is a lot of altitude loss here out of Gambler and a tight turn. Not quite as tight. I'd say that's a little bit closer to 5 Gs, which is a pretty optimal turn. Second missile here out from Rich. So yeah, look, the fact that they weren't even hot allows these guys still getting... These are pretty long-range shots, about 40 miles. Now, of course, they're not going to do much, but it gets TMC to turn cold. Oh, hold on. Hold on. This missile... No, this missile has lost lock. For a moment there, it looked like this missile could be going out for Rattler. But look, Frosty and Black Pixel now coming in, now able to go hot. Now Tech and Callie turning out cold. Perhaps they're struggling to get a good GCI picture. Perhaps it's just being more difficult to convey that information. But I mean, this is a very strange. It looks like they've kind of had to reset their fight back standard. Yeah, they spent all their time heading down south, right? They flew down south all this time, and now they have to fly back up north. It's sort of what they've done, rather than just flying into the fight. So they've really delayed this fight to find themselves in sort of the same position. But look at this, the nice, beautiful crossing here in support. Stinger out front. Rich is a little bit, looks like Stinger got a little bit aggressive. See, this turn here isn't quite as neat as Rich's. Stinger's a little bit out of order here. Rich isn't able to support. And AIM 120C here out from Dauber. Dauber just lets that missile go straight into the pit bull and says, hey, I think the missile only needs that little bit of initial guidance, and from there it will be fine. And then watching it go in, and we can see the missile does have track. It is tracking on Black Pixel. Black Pixel now turning in, fires this missile. Not going to be able to get a ton of use out of it as is engaged. AIM-120C still has a lot of speed. Still has quite a lot of speed. Nope. There we go. Missile starting to get confused. That's a very interesting missile behavior there. Is able to defeat the missile, but that actually did look like quite the threat, and a good fire there from TMC. Once again, we see them choosing, look, we got to spend the altitude, otherwise we're going to have no airspeed in our turn. Hopefully we start to see a little bit of pitch up out of Rattler here. Look, I've run the missile out, but in I'm cold. I mean, look, actually, we can see that. Look at Fresh right here. You can see this trail of where Fresh was fighting. Fantastic altitude climb. Is now back up and ready to engage again. Wow, this missile is still doing stuff. R27 ER here out from Stinger onto Fresh. All that time Fresh spent climbing up, and unfortunately going to have to lose it just because gets fired on once again on a missile that immediately goes useless. So it looks like this missile here from Death Angel is actually what ends up making that missile go useless. Stinger finds himself engaged, has to turn cold to defeat that missile. Tail very far ahead. I am live on TAC view. Largely the same, should be. Perhaps a slight bit of delay, but this should be accurate. Tail, defending this ER, kind of got himself out forward, fires off an R77, kind of into nothingness. These 120s chasing Stinger. TMC really is looking like they're putting the pressure on more this round. They're really sort of looking at, hey, we let 51st maintain that altitude advantage. And you can kind of see here, 51st does have some altitude advantage, but not as much. Rich, though, way up high here. We can see on DCS, you can see, look, the only peoples with 30s in their numbers are 51st. Now, it's not as bad. We're looking at, 10, 15. Unfortunately, Rich, that's 20,000 feet different. Rich screaming up here, ready to find some targets. Actually, looks like he fired off one of his ETs at some point. There goes an R27 ER out from Rich here, tracking on Gamble, looks like. Low, could be a bomb drop here. It's just going straight down. Gamble having to defend. Death Angel now very low. That missile looks terrifyingly close. Is defeated, but ooh, bit of a fright. Second ET out from Rich. You know, going, hey, look, no launch warning on this one. It'll have just as much range as that R-27ER, but it might be a bit more difficult. And that ER is defeated, and it looks like the ET is defeated too. 2 missiles, neither of them connect, unfortunately for them. Back in the fight here. Still have a 6v... No, we do not have a 6v6. We have a 5v5. We do. 2 aircraft were lost. Who was it, when, and where? We'll have to roll the fight back in a minute, but we're still in the midst of it. Gambler firing out a missile here on Stinger. Oh, Callie, I don't know if you see this missile here, man. Wow. That is a very narrow defeat here by Callie. Very lucky. Looks like at the last second you can see the missile starting to run out of speed, but... Oh, that was a very close defense by Callie. That missile came almost out of nowhere here from Dauber. Well, a little bit of loss of this mutual support. They're kind of going a bit more wall here. AIM-120C out of Rattler. Looks like once again at Callie. R-27ET out at Dobler from Tech on the hot aspect. See a return 120 kind of... Oh, Dauber, you're... I don't know if... Oh, you don't have... I thought you were much lower in altitude than that. Actually, it's a fantastic level of altitude management here from TNC. A huge improvement over the last fight. AIM-120C here almost has Rich. And see, it starts to get confused and ends up missing out there. Very near kills here. Another R-27ER out on Death Angel. Gambler. Ooh, Gambler's in a good position here. Stinger, Kai, Rich. 3 targets, Juicy. Oh, but does get engaged. Like the mutual support Black Pixel has spent some time leaving the fight to climb up to altitude. Forces Gambler to turn out. Rich, now dealing with his AIM-120, has speed. And here we see this could be the 5G maneuver. Turns a little bit of... Yep, a correct identification. See, Rich learns here from his last fight. Oh, no. Rich is not able to defend it. I was going to say the correct maneuver to turn cold, but Rich actually ends up eating it. Believe that puts the fight into a 4v4. It does. Looks like there was a loss of a TMC player. This is a much closer fight, far more interesting than the last one, if I do say so myself. But missile advantage is on the 51st. We see Dauber here firing off an AIM-9. One of the downsides of being this aggressive with the Vipers, you just don't have many missiles. Ooh, trying to run, just runs headfirst in that ER. Not much to be done there. Maybe was looking to try and get a missile out on Stinger. Gambler now takes an R-73 off the nose. But the missile does get defeated. 120s here coming out from Fresh and Death Angel. Running in Stinger. Stinger doesn't look like this is a defeatable missile. That is a death for Stinger. Possibly defeated. Possibly. Ooh, and a death for Gambler from Tech. Low in altitude. Black Pixel's the only one here who's got altitude at this point. We're now in a 2v3. Altitude advantage is on 51st. Same with missile advantage. We have an R-27ER out. Looks like that's on Fresh. Is there anything you can do? I mean, this looks like a bomb drop. Death Angel coming around on Tech. Tech kind of just lets him get in the saddle there. Fresh narrowly avoids that missile. My goodness, that was close. Now, Death Angel here probably having some issues with situational awareness, the lack of that E3, the distance away from it. An R-73 out here on Fresh. It looks good. You got to do something. Oh, and eats it. It is now a 1v3. TMC is not in favor. And if I were to make an estimate here... Oh, and TMC's Death Angel already dead. Very interesting that TACView is so far behind. Loses it from a R-27 ET from Kai. That is a second victory for 51st, but much, much closer. We're going to have to run that back in the TACView. We're going to get right into that TACView because we're going to have to run this back and see where some of those losses were. And of course, first round, we saw 51st win 5 players remaining. And it was a little bit more brutal against TMC. TMC this time around, much more aggressive, says we're not going to let you bat our face in like you did first time around. Takes some names with them. And for a while there is trading in. We see 5v5, 4v4, 3v3. I mean, they're really running these numbers close. And it's only in that last 3v3 where some of the missile changes, right? Not the missile changes, just the numerical advantage that 51st is going to have because they're flying aircraft with more missiles. That's where that starts to come into advantage. And of course, the bomb drops out of Black Pixel. But like I said, we got to watch this back. Now, these first set of missiles come out. They are largely defeated. You can see, wow, look how much airspeed this lofted missile has, even if it goes after nothing. First set of missiles out here. Dauber fires a missile out on Stinger. Narrowly misses Stinger. I think this one actually ends up going for Black Pixel. Forces Black Pixel down. Cali and Tech coming in from the north. R-77 out of tail. I believe this one does largely nothing. Death Angel throwing in some 120s here. Still largely nothing. Tail very narrowly defeats this R-27ER here just by the skin of his teeth. Well, no, a little bit more room. Not some of the near misses we've seen out of these 120s on some of the 51st players. Dauber firing this missile out here on Tech, and Cali engaged. Both of them, really. 2 missiles here on Tech, but both defeated. And it looks like at this point in time, we've had our first loss. And it is Tail dealing with this ET out of Rich. We saw this when we looked at Rich. We said, well, where'd your ET go? Tail turned back in. Oh, man. And unfortunately, it's just that turn back in that ends up causing Tail to eat the missile. So the first loss is on TMC. That's 1 kill on 51st side, but they don't let it sit for long. They push in it advantageously. Oh, we see another near miss. Look at how close this is. My goodness. In fact, I want to see, TACView, you tell me how close was that missile to Cal. Same thing, under 100 foot. Saw it right there. 54-foot defeat. That is very, very close, especially on a big aircraft like the Flanker. So a very near missile defeat. More missiles out and exchanged. Rattler takes another shot. R-27ET. And right here, what we have here, we have a 5v1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do have a 5v6. Is now a 4v4. And there are still some kills to be had. Rich eats that 120C we watched. We thought Rich had defended this missile. We were very certain of it, but in fact, interestingly enough, it looks like perhaps even by turning cold a bit here, the missile was able to spend less energy to turn in. Very close. A little bit more aggression needed out of Rich to defeat that missile launched from Gambler. Very close. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look. From Rich to Gambler, how much distance was there in that launch? Yeah, very close. 10-mile launch. Ton of energy on that missile, not a pistol, firing like a pistol, straight into Pitbull, tracks it on Rich, and that breaks us down into a 4v4 because very near to Rich's death is who I keep seeing to miss it. We're going to 5v5. Frosty, here it is. Frosty takes this 120C. Boy, this one took forever for me to find here at a Death Angel. We see Frosty comes in, does that turn. Looks like this is where the 120C is starting to win out here. Could be a slight missile change, could be just a very small adjustment to the maneuver, or just could be the fact that these missiles are launched very close here. Let's take a look here. When Death Angel launches this missile to Frosty, where is Death Angel? Right here. Another 11 nautical mile fight. I mean, this fight very close. Missile out. Frosty goes into the engagement. Tries to, okay, goes into the crank. Could use a little bit more of a beam here. Because by not being in the beam, this missile doesn't actually have to maneuver as far. So by not being in the beam and going cold, it seems like going cold would be a better way to defeat a missile, right? You're getting further away from it, but by going into the beam, it's got to expend more energy turning, whereas this missile is really able to fly relatively straight all the way in. We can even, watch it here. No, not much turning, not much turning. A little bit of turning here. This is good. This is the maneuver you want the missile to be making, but you really want to exaggerate that maneuver. Unfortunately, that missile just has so much energy that Frosty ends up eating it as well. Next kill up is another. I mean, look at how close these missiles are. Kai barely dodging that missile. Another shot here. Rattler, I mean, you can just see an absolute furball. This is what we're here for, guys. This is the type of fighting that we love to see out of TMC, out of 51st, out of the guys at SERP. This is an absolute mess of a fight. These players are in it to win it, and there are missiles everywhere. We see an ET. Of course, this is the IR-guided missile out from Stinger, who is, because it is IR-guided, does not need to maintain a lock, is immediately able to turn cold, gives them the advantage over Rattler here. Rattler does eat the missile, unfortunately, and both of Rattler's missiles end up defeated as well. And you can see a little bit of a death valley here of AIM 120s, just low in altitude, low in airspeed. Look at some of them have done some very strange maneuvering. This one's interesting. Grabs that lock and then just sort of hangs out with it. Very, very silly. Sometimes the 120Cs can do fun stuff like that. Not so fun if you're the one who's launched it, but here we are in that 4v4. Now into that 3v3, we see, of course, multiple launches. Rich tries to do a double launch, an R73 launch. Both of them go stupid as he's immediately forced to turn cold because of these launches out of Gambler. I think this is the launch that does get him. We see a 9M out of Dauber here. Doesn't really look like it's at anything. Didn't have tone, and unfortunately, Dauber gets a bomb dropped on him here. Kai does a very good job of getting back up to altitude after some of those earlier engagements. Missile off the rails is able just to burn straight into Dauber, and, you know, Dauber doesn't defend the missile. I don't know if Dauber knew how close the missile was. Probably a little bit target fixated here on Stinger. Wanted to get a 9M in the face-off to try and lessen the odds. We can't go back and see this for sure, but look, let's think about this based just on the numbers. Dauber here, probably low on missiles, probably down to that last 9M. Stinger's probably still got plenty of missiles. The Su-33 carries quite a large payload, so because of that payload difference, Dauber's probably looking at us going, look, I need to get in there. I need to get this missile off. I need to try and kill Stinger because that'll make up for the fact that I'm out of missiles, right? If I've just got guns in a fight like this, I'm struggling. But if I can take Stinger with me, I'm going to make a bigger impact. At this stage in the battle, I'm going to make a big impact. And right now, look, I mean, we're looking at 4v4 too. I mean, that'll be a very potent. It's a good trade for them to make when they're so low on missiles. But unfortunately, Kai is up high and in support. You can actually even see here, as we pull this back, Kai is spending some time, loses altitude. Here in the middle of the fight, gaining altitude, right? A lot of people might turn back in hot, but hey, look, I know my teammates are here. I'm going to gain some altitude. I'll fire this ER off at Death Angel, even if it's not going to do much. Still going to gain some altitude. I got to spend a bit more altitude. What I'm probably getting here, if I were to estimate, Kai's getting a call. Look, Stinger's going, I'm close, or maybe from the GCI, look, I'm close to this F-16. I need somebody in support. I need help, right? So Kai cuts that in, slices back in a little bit to gain some more G in that turn without losing too much speed, and then just bomb drops right here on Dauber. Not much to do in defense of that, unfortunately, and that turns it into a 3v4, but not to sit there for too long. Death Angel and Fresh both soar at the same time. Ooh, a little bit of probably too many missiles here for this late in the fight. Didn't need that second missile, although it almost did look like it. Stinger, in fact, maybe a little bit of desync here. Might have even hit the ground, but nearly died either way. Pretty much an assured death there. Second missile probably wasn't needed. They probably were sitting there maybe making the decision. Fresh is going, look, I want this kill. I need this kill. We can do a 3v3. We can't do a 3v4. But had they still had, I mean, that probably puts Fresh out of missiles. And, you know, having that extra AIM 120 would have been super helpful. R77 out of tech. This might even be the first effective R77 we have seen at such a close range. Maybe there's just not much that Gamble can do, and doesn't help that, look, turns into the missile, you know, to defeat it. You know, maybe had he turned right, he would have been okay, but it's just a rough call to make and not much time for the thought. I mean, that launch is what? Between Gamble and Techum here. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, that's 2 miles. Yeah, no, that's almost undefeatable. That's almost a guaranteed kill. You know, not much you can do there. A valiant defense attempt, and honestly, look at these flares. Probably thought this was an R73, but unfortunately it's an R77, which is meant to be fired at a little bit longer range than 2 miles, which means that thing is going to rip into its target. A good choice to fire the R77 here, because right now Gamble is cold. Had Gamble broken out to the right, and burned away. Probably would have been a bit more difficult. Probably could have survived it, but like we said, look, very close. Super difficult to get the SA involved in this situation. Probably just made a simple mistake. Nothing to be harped over any longer. And there we have the 3v3 turn into a 2v2, which is very unfortunate. In fact, Gambler almost didn't even need to be in this position. Gambler now turning in for Kai and Stinger, but really could have been turning Colt. Fresh here, doesn't have a return launch, but defends it. Defending nothing has been a thing that we've seen happen a lot this fight, but players are unsure. Look, they don't have perfect situational awareness like the AI do. Is there a missile out of me? I got to defend something. And when you're in no man's land like this, when you're low, close, they're fast. Actually, Kai here is the slowest, but still very quick. It's just danger town, and they've got to defend missiles, even if they don't have any out on them. And here we see Death Angel going after Tech. Fresh takes this R27 ER bomb drop out of Black Pixel and defeats it. A fantastic maneuver. This is a big unfortunate reality here. Should have pressed this fight. Probably didn't have radar, didn't have the SA, might not have seen him here. This is where the fact the fight was in the dark is really going to hurt these guys. And if TMC was choosing to go with the HMD, the fight at this point, it's getting black, it's getting hard to see. Probably lose an easy kill on Tech here. This should have been Tech's death sentence right there, but unfortunately turns out, and this allows Tech to turn back in. Tech, once again, probably loses the SA here too, turns back in, has a perfect engagement here on Death Angel, and just sort of loses it. After a dead player turns in for him, oh, okay, now I got to turn back in again once more. Maybe a little bit tumbleweed here, but that's fine. Kai comes in. Kai's got the nose authority, gets into that target, that ET at that range. There's nothing that Death Angel can do, and that is how they win the fight. Let's see how their landing is going. In fact, they've already got 2 of their airframes down. That is a confirmed victory for 51st here with a 2-0 with their aircraft on the ground in round 2. Congratulations to 51st for winning that fight. That was intense, and that was very well played by both teams. Let's see if I can't get any of these guys in for an interview. See if I can't get my contacts in both teams to go ahead and send me somebody to talk to for the interview. It's best of 5. It's best of 5. I'm a silly fool. There's more fighting to be had. I thought a 3v best of 3 was wrong, and I was. Best of 5, more fights to be had. Players are getting back in the servers. Let them set up now. I believe they'll switch side once again. What does that mean, best of 5? Well, like we've seen in the past where we did best of 3, first to 2-1. Best of 5 means there's one more fight, right? If TMC, it's Cali. Thank you for the information. I seem to have reading problems quite often. Cali. This round right here is really important for TMC. Server still coming back online. This round is pinnacle for TMC here because this is the make or break. If 51st is allowed to win this next fight, that's the match. Okay? But if TMC is able to do the same improvement that we saw the last fight here, again, that could be a victory for TMC. That could put it into a runoff, right? 1v2, 1.2 point between the two of them. Will get a 4th round out of these guys. Will force another fight. And if TMC is able to continually improve at the rate they did between the first and second match, that's going to be a threat for 51st. 51st, you know, first match, they probably said, 1 loss is okay. You know, it's unavoidable, right? Against a good team like TMC, taking one loss, we're happy with this. We can replay that fight in much the same way, but they might have to be going back to the drawing board a little bit here, figuring out, hey, do we have to change something up? Is TMC reading our fight too much now? What are we going to do to deal with the fact that TMC was able to adjust their fighting tactics very quickly and very effectively? And if they can do that again, I mean, if we see TMC at this point, I'm not even sure what I would change for TMC. Team's going to make a comeback and beat the 51st. All right, Jack. Well, it's easy to see where your allegiances lie. And here I thought you flew for the 51st. Server still struggling to come back online as we set it up for the next fight here. Some mythology while we talk. Kali is a Hindu goddess who is considered to be the goddess of ultimate power, time, and destruction and change. She is considered a ferocious form of goddess of... Ooh, I don't want to mispronounce anything. Adishakti, that's probably wrong, supreme of all powers, or the ultimate reality. Kali Yuga means the age of Kali, the age of darkness. Very interesting. Age of Darkness, which does start 10 minutes after takeoff here on the night fights. Server is still offline. Hopefully that server can get back up soon. As you can see, even the TAC view still waiting a little bit to get on set. While we let the servers think themselves through, let's do our favorite thing here. Let's thank our sponsors, and of course, let's run that trailer.
Copy. 6.
All right. Well, while we let the servers get themselves sorted out, we'll just run the final stage here. Give a brief update for you guys who weren't here at the beginning. What each team is, where we're going from here. Of course, today we're watching 51st versus TMC. Earlier today was InSky versus Alamo. Now, the winner of today's current match is going to fight ETF in the future, next week, for the true semifinals. Right now, we are in the quarterfinals, get to the semifinals, and then, of course, the final match will be between whoever wins next week's fights, but those will be very interesting, of course. Still up in the air who's going to win this week. Will be worth watching. Will be worth checking out, of course, these next fights. The winner of this fight here today, when they go to fight ETF, that's going to be a great fight too. Powerhouses out of ETF. I'm excited. I mean, any combination of these 8 teams would be a blast to watch. Okay, we've just changed. Hopefully we can fix some of our settings here with DCS running a little bit more power to the GPU, see if that solves the problem. So we work the issues here with the servers. Any combination of these teams would be a great fight to watch. I mean, I am absolutely astonished with how quickly TMC was able to reverse the roles here on 51st, even to make the match get even down to that 3v3. And I think that they really stand a chance here of putting in a little bit of a comeback story here, at least getting in one more win, making it into 2 to 1, could go 2 to 2. The more they improve quickly like this between rounds, really these sort of locker room briefings, they're really going to have a chance here to knock 51st around a little bit and could progress into that next round. I mean, if we saw more fights like we did first round, they'd be great fights out of TMC, but they really wouldn't have meant much, right? TMC kind of would have just been putting up a fight, but it was, largely not going to do much overall. But I mean, the fact that they're really sitting down and rethinking their stuff, making sure, hey, look, when you're cold, gain altitude, dude. Pick that up. You need that altitude. Let's keep that altitude advantage, because they were really able to get, we saw 51st was driven into the ground. Black Pixel was allowed to be unengaged a little bit, possibly due to a missort, just down to the stress, which allowed Black Pixel to gain that altitude so much. But still very good fighting out of Black Pixel in that last round. Servers still struggling a little bit here. We'll see. We may end up having to run the trailer again. But I'm excited. I think TMC here really can pull this out. I don't want to pull sides. I need to be a fair mediator here. But I would be very excited to see TMC win this next round. I want to see this fight go on longer, because I want to see both these two teams evolve quickly. I mean, in front of our eyes, we can watch these teams evolve and become more lethal against one another, and that'll be very fantastic. I want to see 51st force back to the drawing table just a little bit. Force back to go, hey, we need to change this. Because I think right now they're very confident, and it would be a big upset to see them forced all the way back to that table. At least up for them, it'd be a bit of an upset. All right, and we do have our new servers. We're switching over from server 2. Server 1, of course, we must thank the server providers, the venerable SPQR. Of course, they were members of this fight, members of this tournament. They fought 3-4-3 not long ago. 3-4-3 was able to win, but I hear that both teams had a great fight. Fortunately, you'll have to give me just a moment here. I appreciate your patience as I get us all set up. Connect in. Here we go. Switch back into TAC view. At least we've got the servers are back. They live once again, everybody. Teams are getting in. We are working our way into those servers now. right. Hopefully this works and we can get into the DCS server as well. Oh, still a little bit offline. Perhaps I've made a mistake with... Oh, I see what mistake I've made. I tried to get into server 2 again. You can see how used I am to one server over the other. All right. Hop in this server. Get ready for this fight. I'm sure these teams have had... You know what? I'll tell you what. I think both teams have appreciated this little bit of a technical difficulty. I know it drags on our stream a little bit. Drags out the fun. We can't see what we want to right away, but I tell you what, I think they could both use a little bit of time, a little bit extra seconds to talk through some stuff. Hey, we've got some time while the servers get situated out. Let's work it. What do we want to do? I think TMC has used this time. I hope TMC has used this time well. Get themselves back on the right foot. Go, okay, we've done well. We need to do a little bit better. What are some things we can change? Let's hopefully they were able to review their fight a little bit and go, okay, we need more altitude, or okay, we need to not double sort, or you know what, let's spend some time. Let's take a book out of 51st page, right? 51st will flow cold, 1 or 2 players to just gain some altitude, right? And that way you can come back into that fight and all of a sudden everybody else is fighting in the dirt and you're sitting up king of the sky and you're just able to drop unavoidable missiles on people. And we've seen this in multiple fights from many different teams that if you're high and close, you can just drop deadly missiles on people. And you know, hey, if we've got somebody high, that prevents the same actions out of 51st, and that's how we fight that problem. If we can get into that 3v3 again, but with one person high, we are golden. And if they can do that, I think they've got a really good chance of pushing this fight further and further into the victory. I'd love to see some BFM again. We've seen BFM from these teams in the past. I'd love to see some more. That's what I'm hoping for here. I want to see some BFM. Let's go ahead and take a look at the DCS side of things. TMC making their way down the runway. Hopefully a little bit less choppy. It looks a little bit less choppy, but still struggling. But perhaps now it'll be nice and smooth once we're in the air. Of course, the wonderful Syria map here. Fantastic map. A bit difficult to run. A lot of detail. You know, put some strain on our computers. But once you get up in the sky, it's just gorgeous map. Certainly one of my favorites. TMC making their way to the flight line. 51st still setting up. They only got 4 people in. Looks like they're missing a 33 and a J11. People just working their way into the server now. Of course, all of the preliminary stuff everybody else was able to set up does kind of go out the window. We're a bit on the back foot here, but oh, these beautiful airplanes. You know, I do like Sukhoi airplanes. There's some other Sukhoi airplanes that I really like over here. They just, something about their aircraft. They look nice to me. I know that my compatriot streamer, of course, those of you watching his stream earlier today, I hope you were, and I hope you did enjoy Airshow's match because, well, I'm sure it was fantastic. I'm a little bit upset I wasn't able to catch it. That match must have been a thrill. Also known Airshow as the Sukhoi. He himself is a flanker. We've actually got an Su-27 and we taught it how to talk. It's a very difficult, long process to be involved in, but after many, many years, we were able to talk to an airplane, and now he tells us about airplanes on his streams. You guys definitely go check him out if you are looking for more SATAC. He will be one of our streamers constantly. We will always see Airshow around to show off some good stuff. Might be able to watch some semifinal action over on his channel. Looks like all of the players are in for the Red Boys over here. TMC making their way to the runway. Looks like they have got all aircraft in, perhaps 3, 4, 5. Looks like they're missing a single F-16, probably still loading in to the server. These guys getting ready to run down the runway here. Very excited indeed. Let's go ahead and really quick just shift over to the TAC view so I can make a slight adjustment. Getting him off his vodka addiction was the biggest part of training him to talk. He keeps slurring. Oh, well, hey, let's let's not be too rough here. We do like air show quite a bit, but of course we did have to switch out the coolant, as Plasma's referring to here. It was running on a vodka coolant before. Now we have to switch off to a non-alcohol based coolant. It just works a little bit better. Is there alcohol cooling in an SU-27? I don't think so. I believe the SU-27 does not use alcohol cooling. I think that is a foregone coolant method of the Soviet Union. All right, real quick here. All right, hopefully, we'll switch back into DCS, can get some nice, better quality graphics for you guys here. All of our players over here getting themselves ready. There we go. A little bit more zoom control now, and a little trick for you guys, as I realize I didn't set this. Zoom out and zoom in slow, very helpful, but external zoom in and external zoom out are a way to change your FOV, which can be very helpful. Those of you guys who want to take some better screenshots or get some better views of aircraft, you can see here we can both zoom out and narrow in that FOV, get some real nice shots. Ooh, gorgeous. And reset it to default. All right. As these guys work their way towards the runway, get some good shots. I think we've watched 51st take off enough time in a row, guys. I think this time we check out the fantastic TMC taking off with their sun to the back. Ooh, that is a threatening view. Look at these little F-16s with that gorgeous Su-27, or J-11 in this case, behind him. Getting ready to roll, getting ready to take the runway out. Looks like they are missing one F-16. They got to get that pilot back in, but these guys look ready. These guys look lethal. Oh, man. I do have to say they're choosing the wrong... see, as a Viper pilot, I can see here. Now, those of you who aren't Viper pilots might not be familiar with this. You might be. I believe Death Angel here. Yeah, I think... or maybe it's Rattler? Let's take a look here. Now, Death Angel has done this correctly. See this? Aim 120 on the wingtip. Okay, we can agree on that. Stagger those 9 mics, right? You gotta stagger. It looks so much more aggressive, and it's just better. I have no sources to back me up, but you gotta stagger them. You can see these guys up here putting that in aim 120 on the edge too. Oh, but now each pilot has their own method. I know some guys like to put those 9 mics on the wingtips too. Especially, I've been doing some fights with only sidewinders on the Viper. Something about that does feel right. I miss seeing my long missiles on the wingtip, but it does feel right to only have heat seekers. As these guys get their last pilot. Now they're missing 2 pilots, actually. Still looking to get into the server. Kiap seems to be all sorted. Looks like, there we go, Gamble getting in, and Dauber, the 2 aircraft who are struggling to get in. All of the Kiap airplanes are getting themselves ready. Like ballerina, moving their way around the airfield. Might need a little bit more of a push-up here out of their lead. Now, I saw mention of this before. Rich is currently flight leading this group of 4 ships, and that air breakup is actually intentional for, not super needed in a fight like this, but it's a good SOP to have. That air breakup lets everybody in his flight know, hey, look, that's number 1. If I see number 1 go by and I'm number 3, I see 1, I see 2. Okay, now I can turn out for my hangar. Really effective, something I enjoy using when working out of the closed hangars, especially at Acrylic, especially in public servers when people are going by and you're like, is that my flight lead or is that just some random Viper? It's very helpful to have a little notification. Bit close here. I think maybe Stinger rolled up a little bit more than he intended to, but once again we're going to see largely the same flight pattern. And actually, one thing I'm wondering here is we can see these guys starting to separate out that distance, right? You got the J-11s in the back more. I bet that's going to let them get up in the air even faster. I think these guys are probably pretty pleased with this airfield. This might be their airfield of choice because of the sun setting. I think this might be the preferred airfield over the western one. There's no sun outlining your enemies from the west. But I think just for the fact that they're able to take the runway a bit more like they a little bit more spaced out to get rid of some wake turbulence faster, I think 51st may enjoy the eastern spawn. A couple technical difficulties here over from the guys at TMC. Of course, this is unavoidable. Everybody tries their best to get around these, but it does take a little bit. Gamble's gotten himself in. He'll be ready to fight. Oh man, what are some things you guys want to see, chat? You can feel free to interact now. What are some changes you'd like to see either of these teams make going into this next round? What are some tactics that you've been impressed to see? What are some things that you think you're surprised you saw them? You were kind of hoping for maybe a bit more. I don't want to say professionalism or quality. Both these teams are very professional and very high quality, but just something that you were surprised to see that you're like, man, that doesn't seem like it makes sense. It's not fitting a team of this caliber. Anything you guys have seen today that sticks out to you, or anything that you're feeling like, I'm missing? I'm extra super excited. I am glad to hear that, Jet Doe. I'm stoked. The longer that we wait for this fight to go on, the more tension that builds. I think the more aggressive TMC is going to get. I probably bet we'll see TMC's probably getting some anger right now. They're like, oh, DCS, it's not working. They've got a great outlet. Take that out on 51st Kiev. Throw missiles at him. Take him out of the sky. Knock him out. Get aggressive. Make this fight one for the history books, because I think that'll be worth watching. Well, any fight for the history books is worth watching, but I think that will make this one of the best fights of SATAC. Definitely one of the best fights I'll have been able to cast. So far, this last fight was incredible. I think that might be one of my top matches that I've cast. But there's more room for improvement. Enjoyed GCIing for TMC the first map. I think they have a good plan for this round, but I have to run. Didn't wake up thinking I'd be GCI for Alamo, then TMC. Oh, indeed. Well, thank you, Alpha Gator, for being the GCI for TMC. I'm sure they appreciated that. I'm excited to see the mentality they have coming into this round develop into a flight plan. Please don't spoil anything for us, because, we like to see it develop live. Surprised to know SD10s. Those were challenging RMAC in SATAC. They now have a GCI to take over for me. Plasma, I kind of agree. I was expecting TMC to bring out a Jeff. TMC has actually brought out Jeffs multiple times this fight. I think TMC and SPQR are the only Jeffs that I've seen. Now, I haven't been able to catch all the matches, so there might have been more, but the lack of an SD10 equipped Jeff really does seem like an interesting choice here. It's got incredible missile ability. It's also got something else. Something that's worth talking about. The SD10 comes with a great data link, and if you know how to use the data link on that Jeff, it can really be a boon. One thing that we learned since one of the early implementations of Jeff versus F-18 with the TALDs is that the Jeff's radar can actually identify a TALD and mark it as such on a data link, so that decoys are not as effective against it as they are against a lot of the other aircraft here. Now, obviously, TMC knew they weren't going to be going up against any JF-17s. That would be a massive departure from the norm for 51st 100th. Those guys are certainly flanker pilots to the core, but the SD-10 is a very competent missile. I think that it's, you know, been proven to be a more competent missile in DCS than the AIM-120C is. It's way faster, which allows it to close that distance quite a bit more. It doesn't have too much more range that speed gives it. Its loft isn't as good as the AIM-120, but I am certainly surprised to see them stick with F-16s and not try to put in a couple JF-17s just to throw in some faster missiles. If you arc the SD-10 at that altitude, it's deadly and it flies in from space. Indeed, could break up that flanker formation. It really could be a great way to start messing with 51st's nice, tight 30,000-40,000 flanker formation by throwing in some missiles to it. Make them defend early. Make those early missiles. I mean, you can kind of play on a bit of a knowledge. Look, that's a Fox 1. I lob an SD-10 at that. They've got to turn. I don't need to dodge this missile. The missiles, they have to turn away from my SD-10, which means their Fox 1 won't hit me, and that lets me push into those guys that are coming around. They're not expecting to see me hot and close, and I'm sorting them already. I mean, you could really use that as an effective tactic to deal with this sort of deployed methodology, kind of a daisy chain that 51st is using. Can't wait to see pilot skill overcoming the Fox 3 advantage. Indeed, 51st certainly does have a lot of pilot skill, and they are able to use that to overcome the Fox 3 advantage. But, you know, the Fox 3 advantage is something that they have to plan for from the start. Their entire tactic is based around overcoming that Fox 3 advantage, having more missiles, firing them more often, and keeping that altitude. That R-27ER can be almost as effective as an AMRAAM, save for the fact that it doesn't have an active seeker. At 40,000 feet, that thing can soar. The longest kills that we've seen in the matches today, in the matches so far up to today, have been from R-27ERs. They are very competent, and the pilots can do quite a lot with them. So I'm excited to see more of that out of 51st, and they continue to use strategic planning right before they get into the tactical fight. They're coming up with their strategies before the match, and that's where they're trying to start working out that Fox 1 versus Fox 3 advantage, disadvantage. And that's really what sets these teams apart from some of the guys that you might, you know, some more casual PvPers. They've got doctrines here. They're working. They've got SOPs. They've got doctrines. They practice this stuff. They are starting from before the match. This fight doesn't start when I go live. It starts the moment two teams get pitted together and they start reviewing how that other team plays. What are their tactics? What are the airframes they use? What can we expect? How do we want to deal with this? How do we want to deal with this? It starts from there and it goes into the tactics. It goes into the fighter skill, into the defeats, into the notches, into the maneuvers. But it is a all-encompassing set of skills needed here. Can't wait to watch the rounds when I get home. Indeed, I will make sure to have the VOD up to YouTube right away, Gator, so you can check them out. And everybody who had to miss some part, either if you still have to head out or if you were unable to get here at the start of the match, no worries. We'll have the VOD sorted out right away on Twitch and a YouTube VOD very quickly after sent over to Tech so that the official SATAC YouTube channel can have the video on it. You can also find it on my own YouTube channel, but it's a very small channel, and it may end up being unlisted just so I can make sure that it gets on the SATAC channel first. So make sure you check out the SATAC YouTube channel. But if you have a desire to watch the first two rounds and you're here now and you didn't make it right away, you can't wait for YouTube to process the video. The VOD will be up instantly, so you can make sure to check that out. Let's check back in with TMC. We now have a last aircraft here coming in. Looks like Kingston. I don't remember Kingston's name being here. I believe Kingston was unavailable for the first set of flights. Switches out for Dauber. Now, the pilots are allowed to do this. They are allowed to switch out the pilots. Now, they've chosen not to switch out the airframe. Kingston has brought in other airframes. We've seen F-14s out of TMC in the past, in addition to the Jeffs, as well as multiple different variations of the Su-27, but choosing to stick with the F-16 here, I believe that is mostly because of the rules. You know, hey, you're locked in now. But they're now all on the runway. Sorted themselves out. Oh. These guys are getting ready to fight. Look at that massive airframe. It really does go to show you just how huge the Su-27 is. Although for those of you, like myself, who enjoy seeing airplanes in the real world too, and I assume most of you do, if you've ever seen an F-16, you know, whenever, I'm sure you guys can, you know, commiserate with this sort of feeling of, I go to the airshow museum, I'm like, damn, all these planes are really big. F-14 is massive, or, you know, F-4, F-15, like these planes are huge. Damn, I didn't realize they were this big. I feel small. And then you see the F-16 and you're like, oh, that one looks normal sized. It's such a small airframe. You're like, oh, that one's the right size. All right, looks like TMC probably doing their last set of checks here on the runway, getting ready. Probably going to give a little bit of a delay. 51st key app will want to rearm and refuel. All these Vipers running the triple bag loadout. Now, I'm not a fan of the triple bag loadout. I think the centerline pylon has way too much drag. Obviously, it's a drop tank. You can get rid of it. But that pylon alone has a ton of drag to it still. And you cannot jettison the pylon. Makes it a little bit more draggy. It's something that I prefer not to fly with. MiG-31 is insanely large. Yeah, as a regional airline. Yeah, MiG-31s are huge. I have to sort of get my firearm safety certificate so I can buy a pistol. Good job, Jack, making sure you have the proper safety laws before doing that. Make sure you're nice and safe before handling something like that. I trust you have a good rest of your day. Of course, you can check out the stream afterwards in the VOD. It'll be up on YouTube. I'm sure we're looking for some fantastic fights. Woo! Kingston is in. Cali Black Pixel responding to him. These guys, of course, they've fought against each other before. In the past, they've trained with each other. All right. TMC ready. Sorry for the delay. We'll make sure and 51st is ready. All right. Let's get to it. There's been enough tension. Let's get the fight going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fights on. Oh no. I should just have that copy pasted. Alright, let's not get too political, guys. And the first aircraft ripping down the runway here. Ooh, a little bit of a squirrely takeoff, but beautiful, taking off right in front of our eyes. Second set of Vipers will be ready to go here shortly. You can stuff 2 Vipers into 1 flanker. Indeed, you can stuff 2 Vipers into 1 flanker. Ooh, a little bit more squirrely here, dealing with the air turbulence. All right, these last 2 guys going airborne here. We'll back up on the runway a tad. Woo, that's a little bit too far back. Watch these 2 go. Get up and let's see how the fight is starting to develop. Now, one thing to note, because of the technical difficulties. Now, let's be clear here, guys. I'm not saying that this was anybody's intent. Technical difficulties are a part of DCS that we have all had to deal with at one point in time. And it's just a reality we need to learn to work around. But that sun is quite a bit lower. I mean, just take a look at that. Look how much lower that sun is. When these guys get up to altitude, they will not have as much of a disadvantage from this airfield as they normally would. Again, this is not TMC's plan. Just simply the facts of reality, the facts of DCS, the facts of a couple technical difficulty issues, but that is against no one. So the fight does have a bit of a different dynamic. Now, these pilots are running in already, and let's go ahead. We're just going to go straight into both the DCS and the TAC view to see how this fight starts to develop. 51st doing, yeah, exactly as expected. 4 aircraft off to the side. They're getting ready to go. They're forming up. They're taking their nice flight out. In fact, let's go ahead. I think everybody likes to see these guys. We'll watch these guys roll in here. Ooh, it is dark. And these guys are thriving in it. Now, their lights will go off soon enough, but hopefully we can find a nice angle that they can take off from, and we can keep watching them go up there as we let the fight develop on TAC view. Now, What do we see here? TMC, how are they changing? Well, we've already got one bag off from Kingston as Kingston pushes in here. Another bag off from Fresh. Probably that center line tank. Like I said, it has a ton of drag. Ooh, let's get a nice... Yeah, very nice. Alright. Like we said, that bag does have a lot of drag, so getting it off early means that, hey, we've probably spent the burning, right? We've gotten up to the altitude we wanted at. Let's get rid of that. We don't need that much fuel, right? Triple bag is really something you might need for, I don't know, a ferry flight, you know, a long distance, 100-some-mile flight. And these guys don't need that much fuel. Now, it's not a short distance flight they'll be making, right? But they can afford to lose those bags early. They're still getting up. Seems like largely a similar tactic to what we've seen before. Again, turning directly into, of course, Bullseye is the center of that circle, so we can use the rings of Bullseye here on TAC view to get a rough idea of where aircraft are going, where that circle is. They're pushing directly into it here. 100th, once again, doing what we've seen, coming out in the beam, looking like, hey, we want to gain our altitude here so we can come in nice and high. Benefits to both of these approaches. TMC can kind of dictate, hey, if TMC tries to match what 51st is doing, why isn't TMC doing it? Well, one of the biggest reasons is they aren't in Vipers. Now, we mentioned this before. They will not be able to get as much out of a side climb as you will be able to get out of a side climb in some of the aircraft like an Su-27. They cannot operate at 40,000 feet. That's just the physics of it, not effectively. They're going to be falling out of the air. They're going to be full burner, low speed. It's just not worth it for the Viper. The Su-27 can. The longer TMC spends out of the circle, the more time the flanker boys have to get into the altitudes they want to get into. They're trying to get around that problem, right? So by pushing in directly, that forces at least two of the 51st pilots, we've seen Tech and Cali pushing in early, consistently, and it looks like they've even broken off knowing that this was going to happen. But it gets a little bit of people lower in altitude. It starts that fight a little bit sooner, and it gets a little bit shifted towards TMC's favor there. Not so much in that they've got an outlandish amount of advantageous positioning. It's just that, look, when you are forcing the enemy team to react to your movements, you're the driver of that fight. The more time you spend reacting to somebody's fight is the less time you can spend planning, and when you're reacting, you're entirely reliant on skill. Now, skill is something both teams have in quite high numbers, but not quite as much as they do time to plan. And so by trying to get this, look, let's get this strategy going, let's get this tactic going in this way, the more time you spend in your game plan, the more time you spend winning the fight. Now, of course, if you are in your game plan but down in a 1v6, it's not in your favor. But even numbers of aircraft, if you're in your game plan, the chances of you winning goes up exponentially. Hope our boys don't get overconfident and keep the pressure on. I do hope the pressure keeps coming on here. We can see, of course, 51st starting their turn in. Look at these gorgeous airframes. And they are already supersonic, ripping in through here, keeping that airspeed up, going, look, we need that. We want to be as fast as we can. A little bit of jitter here out of the multi-threading. Let's take a look over here at TMC. We'll bring this back just to DCS for the minute. TMC here largely doing what we've seen before, except for one difference. Down here, tail. This is an interesting choice. This is definitely an evolution and definitely a reaction. Perhaps what they've noticed is, hey, look, when we're dealing with LOT ATC and with GCI, we can sneak somebody in low. And so what they might be trying to do here, and you know what, let's take a look at Tail's loadout. We can learn a little bit more about this from the loadout. Yup, that was exactly as I thought. Take a look at this. Not a single R27ER on Tail. Only R77s and R27ETs, the thermal variant. That's interesting. That actually can tell us quite a lot about their tactic, paired with the fact that Tail is at 4,000 feet. What do we expect to see here? Well, TMC knows, look, we can get that fight into a mess, right? we can make them work because we just saw that we could do it in our last round. How do we make the most out of that mess? And it looks like the answer is we're going to recreate the trailer. Now, I'm sure we've all seen the trailer. I've run it here multiple times. High and fast aircraft, down on the deck aircraft. Aircraft low just sprints in undetected, terrain's to their favor, trying to dodge the AWACS radar, be unseen, and then pop up. And by the time they pop up, it is way too late. They are underneath you, they've got a missile out, and you've got no chance to defend. And the reasoning that I have for thinking this is happening, else than Tail's altitude, just for starters, is Tail's ordnance choice. None of the missiles that Tail's firing require Tail to maintain a lock. The R-77s can be fired right into Pitbull, which is what I expect them to be fired in, to provide zero warning to the flanker boys on 51st 100th. Oh boy, this is getting close. We're going to put both up here because this is getting very close here. First set of missiles out here from Cali and Tech. A couple R-27 ERs screaming through the sky here. They're looking good. A return out from Gamble. Oh boy. Now Gamble's missile is looking good, but seems it's gone into Pitbull. It's gone true. It's not lofting anymore. It doesn't really have the range. These return missiles out, they're also going to get trashed. Man, you can see just look how low Tail is. I really do hope that works the way we expect it to work. And I would love to see some action from Tail here. Low on the deck, underneath maybe Black Pixel and Stinger or Frosty and Rich. All of a sudden, no one knows where he is and just rips up, fires off some missiles, and is able to turn. Take no prisoners, give no quarter. Indeed, I hope this is a good fight. I think both teams need to be on their A game here. We can, of course, see. We've seen this many times before. We see this deploy here out of 51st. Works well. Works well, but look, if Tail is able to get in here, unengaged, staying low. I mean, look, Tail is now using, well, hell, we don't need to see it here. We can go ahead and watch Tail down low. In DCS. Oh boy, you know he's got to be playing with Gamma up. Let's go ahead and boost our Gamma so you guys can see better. We'll go with a Gamma of 3, I think. Yeah. You can see down low in these clouds going, probably mill-ish. No burner. Fuel does get burned faster down here. Doesn't want to burn all of it. Will need it. Doesn't need all the speed, though, right? Is in the back for a reason. Let this fight develop. Let Tail stay low. And when we take a look here on the TAC view is when we'll see Tail make his deployment. Now, these R-27s, this one, largely wasted. Stinger fires off here. Ooh. Overhead fly you can see there as Kingston now passes over the top of Tail and his Viper going supersonic. This R-27 is going off into space. Perhaps maybe it was a long-range ballistic missile meant for the airfield. Another R-27 ER here off Stinger at Death Angel. Death Angel returns with a 120. I'm not a huge fan of this maneuver here. Now, the distance between these two aircraft is pretty close, but I'm much more a fan of seeing a little bit of a more notch engagement. We're launching at 30 miles. There's plenty of time for a notch. Looks like Tail down low, putting that gate on now. What's the plan here? Oh, hopefully Tail didn't get engaged. I think Tail got a little bit scared. This R-27 ER was certainly going after Death Angel. Oh, no. I think that R-27 ER switched and went for Tail. Could be a bit of an error in their game plan. Ooh, Stinger here in trouble, though. That 120C is close. Has speed. 2 ETs out. On Fresh and Kingston. Can they defend it? Take a look. Fresh looks like maybe the one at the most threat. Looks like fast, clean Viper burning. I think Fresh has got that defeat easily. All right, who do we have next? Black Pixel and Rich. Moving in here. These guys now almost in a wall. Hold on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We are short some 51st players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are not short as many TMC players. TMC is actually able to take the advantage here. We'll have to run that back after the fight and figure out who went down first. But considering that Tech, Black Pickle, Frosty, and Stinger are up, I think that means... Oh, no. Sorry, I can't count. That is 5v5. There was a trade. Kingston, oh boy, that's an ET into the face. Dodges it. Easily dodges. ET goes for the flares. ER, though. ER catches up to him. Not much he can do about it there. Another ET out here from Rich. Looks like Rich fires at the dead target. And an ER as well. Fired at a dead target. Both of those missiles now wasted. TMC not in the advantageous position here. And we can see here, this is the thing we've been worried about a long time. Look at Black Pixel up here. Way up at altitude. 44,000 feet. Able to fire off that ER. And, I mean, we're just going to watch that ER go in. It's going to be a rocket the whole way. This thing is going to absolutely devastate. Or at least it would if it had lock. But this one actually wasted lock. Wrong button there. Wasted lock. Second ER here, though. How is this one doing? This one's screaming in. There's the aircraft. Can he dodge it? Oh, that was a very narrow dodge. Very good job there done by... Who is that defeat on? I think that was on Fresh. Able to defeat not one, but two missiles at the same time. Very, very well done. Missile here. R-27 ET out of Tech. More shots in. Tech now has Death Angel in the face. The missile's going for Tail. Tail, you got to do something, man. That ET sees you. Oh, and Tail is down. I think that might have been their attempt at having a bit of an ace and a bomb drop here. Wow. Death Angel and Tech merge. I don't even think they know it. Take a look here. We're just going to go straight to DCS at this point. This fight is all about to break out into all hell. We've got an R-77 there, gone. Stinger in the Su-33 ripping in low. What is he going to do here? Down in those fights, everybody is low. Frosty is the highest. Man, this is surprising. Looks like despite having that original altitude advantage, which actually lost, there was another kill there down to a 2v3. We still have a possibility for victory here. Let's take a look at these F-16's missile counts. This guy is down to Heat Seekers only. No more long-range ordnance. Gambler, same thing. Heat Seekers only. Now we're getting into a big fight. Stinger looks like Stinger's in a good position here. Fall that missile out. It's burning. It sees somebody. You can see right there the slight bright dot. The afterburner takes out that aircraft. Oh. And 51st wipes up. That was impressive. We're going to go straight into the TAC view for this because I have a lot to cover. First off, we're going to focus that last little bit right away. This turned into a furball for the ages. I hope both these guys enjoyed this fight because this must have been intense. I am saddened that I can't hear the comms internally for this. Tail eats this ET to start with. ER out of Rich. Rich is the highest altitude. I'm going to roll this back because Black Pixel here loses a ton of altitude here. We can see this is basically the kill that lets the fight turn into the furball. This 120C here out from Fresh, taking out Black Pixel. Out from, yeah, indeed, Fresh. He was actually able to get a missile off and dodge. I mean, this was a fantastic dodge here. Very close at the last second. That ER goes for the chaff. My goodness. So, able to get the kill there. And what that does is that really limits the altitude advantage that 51st has. Now, Rich comes in. Rich currently the highest altitude. Runs in and breaks down on that ER. No missile here to defend from, but in the close-in fight, in no man's land. And look at this. Now they're all in no man's land, and they know they've got to go low. Fresh might be the MVP of this round, actually. After coming out from an incredible defense, pitches in, goes, nope. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to look at my unengaged bandit. Let's look at this from the top-down perspective, and we'll get a better idea of what I mean. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's where all your red players are. Now, you could choose to take a right-hand turn here and go back in, but you are going to be turning across the nose of Tech, right into Stinger, right into Frosty, and right into Rich. And you can even start. See, Fresh is about to take that turn, goes, no, I need to take this turn. Turns out to the left. Now, this is when Tail eats that ET, but is able to completely rewrite the dynamic of this fight and put it back into his terms. Fires out here against Rich on the nose, aim 120. Now, here's where we can see some of the Viper's ability as a dog-fighting aircraft. The close-inch fight really is the Vipers. Able to quickly pick up Rich and fire at him, I think, before Rich is able to react. Rich eats that missile in the face. R77 out of Tech here. And this is where it becomes a bit unfortunate. We'll roll this back, of course. We had this interesting thing where Tech and Death Angel completely missed one another in this low-altitude valley fight. I mean, this would have been a really, really excellent time for Death Angel to have taken out Tech. And that would have kept Fresh in the game. And that would have put them at parity, back into advantage here. They'd be taking 2 out because they wouldn't know this at the time. Missile out here on Death Angel from Rich is defeated. R77 at nothing. Probably Tech took a little bit too long to register Death Angel is here. Fires this R77 last second, but the missile has no time to lock on. It's basically pointless. If I were to make an estimate here, I think Tech is firing at these flares because he probably saw nothing of Death Angel. When you're low in the clutter like that, especially in the dark, it can be hard. And then all of a sudden, holy crap, fire off an R77, but nothing for that R77 to hit. This is a very narrow dodge here on this R27ER, possibly due to the fact that Rich has to break lock. I think is what it is Rich here has lost his lock, isn't able to guide that missile in because has to deal with Fresh. Tries to show a hot aspect to Fresh, keep Fresh moving, but Fresh very quickly fires off the 120, and at the low altitude, the AIM 120C, that is where it outperforms the SD-10, is down here in the dirt. It does very well down here, but unfortunately, Tech, who is unengaged, now sees a big old trail of flares. Can't miss this, plus GCI detected. Able to turn in, fire off that missile right away. R77 straight into Fresh. Unfortunately for Fresh, there's not much you can do there, but now we have a bit of an interesting fight here, and it's really not in TMC's favor, and we can see why it gets wrapped up so quickly. R27, ER, R73 out from Frosty and Stinger. ET, I mean, there's nothing you can do. Death Angel was burning hot, but at a range like that, you are guaranteed dead. Same thing, the R73. TMC's gamble probably didn't realize that he was being launched on. Neither of these aircraft have a chance to get flares out. They could have been entirely out of flares, and that wraps it up for Team 51st as they make their way back to the airfield here. A little bit of watching. Let's go ahead and switch back into the DCS-isms to watch these guys go in for their final landing, and hopefully they don't mess it up and they can win the match, or if they do mess it up, we get another round, but hopefully these guys can land at least one of their 3 airframes. And just making sure we have some interviews. There's a lot of things to talk about with these players. I'd love to hear some of the thoughts that these guys have. Wow. You can see I'm not used to playing with gamma all the way up. You can really see the stars. Let's go ahead, before I forget, lower it back down. Back to where I like it. Nice pitch black. That might be a little bit too hard with compression for you guys to see. We'll boost it a bit. Here we go. I'm happy with this. Nice little bit of light, but still quite dark. These players mostly having to fly back on their lights, but they've got more than enough altitude here. Just fantastic piloting from both teams here. Unfortunately, like it was mentioned, let's go ahead and take a look back at the thing that I wanted to see happen. Back in attack view, we'll run this way back. I wanted to see Tail here really get something unique, get a good kill out. It was low altitude, down in the dirt. Probably was expecting to be unpainted, but it looks like, well, the A50 can't see him, but it looks like he was picked up by one of the aircraft here, which they do have, of course, a data link between themselves to show that, and that unfortunately meant that Tail here was not able to run in and do what Tail wanted to do, which was right here. This is the moment. Stinger up here fires this missile out, and yep, it is going for Tail the whole way. Unfortunately, what would have been great to see here was Death Angel guide that 120 Charlie in a bit more to at least get punishment to Stinger for daring to try and hit Tail down low. Tail is unable, I mean, it's a good plan. Low, through the mountains, they've got a lot of hills to fight over. They almost timed it perfectly. I think only thing I would have done differently was have Tail spin a couple times out here way in the back when they didn't see him. But even then, I mean, this is about the best you can get. R-27 ETs in here, and of course from this point on we know how the fight goes. But it was very unfortunate to see Tail, because they chose to make a bit of a risky play of running Tail in low. Tail's able to climb up to altitude here, but look, I mean, just never able to get up the altitude. That R-77 is practically useless. That R-77 is practically useless. Not at any fault of Tail. It was just the choice to play Tail low, coming back to bite the team. Unable to ever get to the altitude that the flanker really likes the altitude, which we see out of the guys in, of course. And stop hearing that jet. We don't need it. In, of course, 51st. They love it, but is it as effective down low? I mean, I think we wanted to see the trailer happen here, but it doesn't help that no launch warning here. Death Angel thinks this launch might be for him. Maybe he can see it, realize that it isn't, but Tail doesn't realize it's for him, and at the last second, I think the information gets through. Tail, you've got a missile out on you, and that's, of course, where we get into this fight, and it wraps up quite tightly, but nonetheless, good fighting from all teams involved. They make their way back in for landing here, starting their approach. We've got some of the fantastic pilots from TMC ready to get interviewed. Once the 51st gets their wheels on the ground, we will say hello to everybody. Let's see if we can't play the game of spotting the dark aircraft in the very dark sky. Man, it is pitch black. We'll have to see if they decide, as earlier we were wondering, hey, would you guys use the what the hell is with the different landing lights? Well, we'll have to see which landing light gets chosen. This is clearly the most important part of this fight. Who's choosing what landing light? We'll see here. They're still coming in. They've still got a little bit ways out. They're probably looking. We're just going to go straight in here. We've got the spacing between, what is this? 5 miles of spacing is plenty of spacing for landings. These guys might be tired. They just fought 3 very good rounds, and they're probably ready to sit down and go, okay, let's get out of the airplanes. I'm sure, especially after round 2, that they have not a lot to debrief. I'm sure their debrief will be interesting when they go over this fight, because round 2, really, I mean, they won it, but it didn't go in their favor. Round 3, it was so close at one point. And I think really the moment that we see that really changes is that Tech doesn't get engaged by TMC. That's what really loses TMC this match. Not that one point. I think there are multiple points that this isn't a one-dimensional fight where something like that can really, affect it too much. But that, I think, was probably the most vulnerable that 51st was. And had Tech been taken down, that would have left more TMC aircraft in the air with more missiles, and it would have really left the MVP of the match still up. Would have been exciting to see. Tail was doing a fantastic job being bait, but didn't get to stay, and they ended up losing that bait that they had. And they ended up losing that. Really, I mean, it was just amazing to watch some of those kills out of the Viper, especially that kill on Rich. Very quickly realized, but I think that had TMC been able to take out Tech in that initial pass that we've talked about so much, I think that they could have won it there. I think that would have been the victory point. And we'll see here. First pilot in landing. But where? The light's still off. I'm looking at the wrong end of the runway. That's why I can't see anybody. That's why it looks so dark. We can see once again that little bit of strange sort of just some afterburners. There are ghosts in the server, apparently. A ghost in the shell, one might even say. And that's the first pilot successfully down for the 51st, which means, of course, that they have won this round. That means that they will be progressing to the semifinals next week, 3-0. A good fight from both teams. Fantastically done. We'll let the last two pilots here in 51st get down before getting into these interviews. Before we get into them, just a congratulations to both teams, not only for making it this far in the competition. There were 4 weeks of fighting before this point. They've worked hard to get here. They both played their A game. TMC constantly tried to adapt. Now, one of the adaptations didn't win, but that doesn't mean they didn't try it. They were doing a fantastic job focusing on reading what had happened, seeing the plays, and developing a new idea. I was very happy to see new ideas in every single match out of them. And of course, 51st showing off their expert piloting, their fantastic coordination, and their ability to keep it high. I think when we were talking earlier about strategically planning these fights, getting over that Fox 3 advantage by keeping your planes high is something that does 51st very, very well. And we've seen it from other teams this year too. Players that can get up at altitude rather than getting down in the dirt. And we're not talking 30,000 feet. We're talking 40, 50,000 feet out of F-15s, Su-27s, Hornets even. Get that thing up at altitude. It will have the best control way up there, and you can make the most out of it. And had we seen a little bit more of that from TMC, I think we would have seen a bit more of a victory. A bit more of what on the scoreboard would look like less of a blowout. But the reality is this was not a blowout. This was a close fight every time. TMC put their all into it, and they dragged 51st to the wall. There were multiple occasions in round 2 and round 3 especially where a simple small adjustment could have totally ruined the 51st game plan and resulted in a victory for TMC. So the scores don't mean everything here, guys. The fighting is impressive. Oh, there we go. A little bit of victory flares there at the end. Fantastic. And wheels down, last plane. All right. Well, let's go ahead, get into the attack view, and start talking to some of these guys. See what they think about this match. First up should be TMC Tail. Indeed. All right, we'll get Tail in here. I can't move Tail. I'll just join Tail. Hey, Tail. Thank you for waiting while 51st got themselves down, and thank you for letting us talk to you for the interview here. First off, before I get you some questions, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, like it was a little bit ironic facing off the like 51st again in the semifinals on the same map like last year. So like a real horrific splashback there, but yeah, it was a tough one. It was a tough one.
Indeed. Well, you guys did a great job. I mean, we mentioned it multiple times that we were really impressed with your fighting consistently. One thing that I'd like to talk to you guys about is that you were just every single round, you guys seemed to take that time between the rounds to think about what had happened and try a bit of a different tactic. First round was definitely your guys' worst round. Second round, you guys came out killing and did a fantastic job running that fight forward and trying to make the most you could out of that situation. What were some things that you guys said that sort of changed the mind of how you were going to run the fight between round 1 and round 2?
Well, like for the first round, we had a GCI called in from another squadron. So like basically our like comms got a bit cluttered due to us not really agreeing on a way how to communicate, but like that got sorted for the second round, which meant that we had much better comms for the second round and much better SA.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that can be difficult, and we had mentioned at the beginning of the round, seeing that you had Starry Fox in. Oh no, I didn't realize that we had missed this. There was a fratricide on your team.
Yes, it was. He screamed on comms when it happened during the last round. Basically, he was about to like jettison his fuel tanks, but he had forgotten to like turn the jettison button.
Oh.
So it turned into a launch.
Oh no.
But it is what it is. It can happen.
Indeed. Well, at least you guys know what to do for the next time. Man, that is a shame, because that last round, I think that was actually, I mean, the second round you guys did a really good job fixing that communication issues, adjusting your tactics. You were able to bring 51st down into the ground, which is something that, you know, consistently teams fighting 51st have had to deal with. And so being able to sort of, hey, 51st, we're not going to let you have that altitude advantage. We're going to continue trying to fight that altitude advantage. We're going to continue trying to get you guys down. We're going to stay high. You guys did a fantastic job adjusting to that within one round. But the third round really had something special to it. I'm not sure what it was. That was my favorite round to watch. I mean, it was just slugfest from the start. We've made the assumption here, Tail, that you were trying to get in that fight low, trying to stay undetected and trying to sort of recreate the trailer a little bit. Low, underneath, pop-ups, you know, kill them when they aren't ready, especially because you had no R27 ERs. You were just ETs and R77s and R73s. How did that plan come around? How did you guys decide, hey, let's try and sneak somebody in low? And unfortunately, you know, do you know how do you think it fell apart?
Well, like the reason that we did it was that basically I had enough of like getting killed at like high altitudes. It is really hard in a lonely flanker to like sync with other guys, considering that you can't see them on the SA. Which meant that I thought it was better to like have it independently and then try to sneak in under them, due to 51st loving that altitude and high speed game. Sadly enough, the map is a little bit too flat to like make it happen. What happened was that as soon as I like left that main valley, their like AWAC started picking me up, I reckon. Which meant that that plan crashed a bit, sadly.
Oh, unfortunately, yeah. Because it was something I was really excited. I'm sure most of the people in chat were very excited to watch you guys just slip in under the radar and cause some chaos. And even though it didn't work out, you know, it was good to see the immediate reaction of, crap, I've been seen. I can't play this gameplay anymore. I got to get up some altitude and get some fight back in. A couple other parts of that third fight. I mean, some very good kills from multiple players. Fresh did a fantastic job. I think we've kind of crowned Fresh as the MVP on some of his kills. Quick reactions to Rich getting that kill and to Black Pixel as well. Sort of one of the threats of, you know, 51st in that third round. There was a moment where it looked like, hey, 51st has been able to regain that altitude advantage and they're up high. And what is TMC going to do? And it was almost immediate that you guys threw a punch back. Fresh was able to get Black Pixel out of the vertical, out of that altitude advantage, defeat that missile very well, turn back in, take care of Rich. Give us an insight. What were the comms like in this moment?
Well, like, to be honest, for the third round, we had actually swapped the GCI to like Dobber. That's why he is not flying that round. Comms were really good, to be honest. We had really good coordination, especially since like Dobber knows our tactics from the get-go. while our lone in SPQR GCI don't know that well, which meant that since like Dobber knew the exact tactic and so on, he was able to like easily structurize, and he did a really good job as a GCI.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, communication certainly is key, and so that seems like maybe that was part of the evolution that we didn't fully have here. I mean, I mentioned multiple times how much fun it would be to be able to hear your guys' internal comms from the outside perspective, but that starts getting into the trade secrets of each team's hard work, so we don't want to take that away from you guys. But it's interesting to know that sort of as we saw your guys' fight evolve, your communications were evolving, getting better and better throughout the day. It is unfortunate there was a moment, one that we cycled back to a few times, not the team kill because we entirely missed that, with at the low altitude fight between, you, Death Angel, and Tech, where Tech comes in. Tech unfortunately takes you out with an ET that, low altitude at close range. I think you were within 5 or so miles. There's not much you can do. And that Death Angel was coming around, and it looked like Death Angel was about to at least avenge you. Coming in for mutual support, it would have been an avenge, but still take Tech out. Can you give us an insight? Maybe the comms there, was it closer than expected, or?
Yes, it was much closer than like expected. I didn't realize that the bandit was on my 6 o'clock. I just kind of misunderstood where he was, which meant that I started turning in the wrong direction, which then put me inside the ET solution area. But I didn't know the ET was there, and like Death was blind as far as I know.
Okay.
On that bandit, sadly.
Oh, that is unfortunate because it looked almost like a perfect cross cover. You were out, Death was in, and it would have been. We've kind of mentioned that maybe in a third round, almost, had Death been able to take out Tech there, we could have seen it go into a 3v2 in your guys' favor. You wouldn't have known at the time because TMC Fresh hadn't, killed Rich yet, but it would have been fantastic to see that go into your guys' favor like that. But nonetheless, you guys did do a very good job fighting it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
One last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we let you go here. Night vision goggles. Now, being a night map here, definitely something where only the F-16s here really have the option. Did you guys choose to go with the night vision goggles? Did you choose to go with the J-Hemics? What was your thinking, regardless of which direction you guys went?
Well, like I heard that it was a little bit mixed in our team. Some people like the night vision goggles, especially due to the full moon situation right now on this mission. Means that gamma is actually possible. So like a lot of people went for the J-Hemics and the gamma.
Indeed, we were doing that here on stream, so we could even see the fight. Interesting. Okay, so you let your players decide. I think that's a very reasonable route. Well, I'll let you go. We're gonna go ahead and interview the 51st. Before.
Yeah, sure. Well, like, might I just quickly say, just like 51st, really good job, really great tournament as well. A lot of fun. You guys are simply enough the like big bad boys on the block, so like not much we can do about it. But yeah, we will be coming back next year and to the semifinals, but win this time.
Fantastic. I like to hear that energy, and that was always going to ask us, did you have anything to say to 51st? Well, congratulations on your fight. It's unfortunate that you guys didn't win, but you guys put up a great fight. I hope you guys have a good debrief of this. There's a lot to learn, but there's a lot you guys did well. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be grateful to see you guys next year and see if you guys can't go even further. Thank you for the interview, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you too. Bye.
All right. We'll get Rich in here. We're going to go ahead and interview him. See what he has to say on the 51st side now while we wait for Rich to finish his little debrief with his players. Hey, Rich, how you doing?
Hey, man, all good.
Well, what are your thoughts? Open with your thoughts, then we'll get into questions.
Shoot the bandit.
Shoot the bandit. Hey, you know what? You got simple thoughts. I like it. Well, first off, a couple of personal question for you as a pilot. Are you a little bit upset of all the players? You seem to be the only one to kind of get downed each round, and in some cases seems just not down to a mistake on your part, just really aggressive play from a single person at a TMC. In each different round, it was a different person. What are your thoughts on that? Are you a little bit disappointed with that? You know, even though your team won, that you're like, I don't feel like I was performing my best, or are you going, nah, look, we won. I was in the positions I needed to be in, and that's what mattered.
Well, at the end of the day, as long as one jet makes it back, you win. So you take the trades and the things you need to do to secure that single aircraft.
All right.
But a lot of the time, it does just come down to the luck of the draw. Bandits get missed. Certain occurrences happen. Missiles
Yeah.
miss.
We saw
you don't have
our fair
control of
share
all
of
those factors.
yeah, we saw our fair share of very close misses from both teams. I think the closest we saw was an AIM-120 about 46 feet from one of the Sukhois. So that was a very near miss from some of these missiles, but same thing as well. We saw some very near defeats of some ERs. Now, this is more of a question for your entire squadron, as you're the representative of them. First round, TMC they played well, but you were able to get kind of pretty good victory over them. Second round, they were able to drag you guys, really into their playing field not most of the time, a lot more. They were able to get you guys down low, try to fight you guys away from getting that altitude advantage, and sort of maintain some aggression. What was the 51st 100th response to saying, wow, that was a big change at a TMC in one round? Did you guys change your tactics, or did you just go, look, just be more aware, don't get cocky, guys, keep your eyes on your altimeter and fight well?
Yeah, not really. No, not really any changes. Just the fight develops to the end game like that. If they don't all go down early, then it's just natural, since we're very aggressive, and it seems TMC were playing very defensively. So eventually we catch
Indeed.
up to them. If we don't make the kills, then we get closer and make them then.
Yeah, indeed. We did see a lot of very defensive play at a TMC and some pretty offensive stuff out of 51st. Now, here's one question. You can elect not to answer this, but it is about your initial openings. TMC consistently ran. In fact, we even saw at one point they ran to the closest direction to get into that circle to try and, I assume, force you guys to at least deploy some people into the circle. But a lot of times when you were into your deployments, you guys were not truly pure on one another. Was that down to saying, hey, look, we're okay to be not pure, we'd rather get in our placements? Was that down to just, hey, GCI is like, okay, we get turned in here and it's a little bit off and this isn't what we were expecting out of them? Or was it just down to, hey, we want to be offset, that way we can fight into that corner?
A little bit of everything, but the idea is, you deploy, and then from there you work, the presentation on the radar along with the GCI comms. It's not really much to look into. It's just, working with the info that you've got available at you at the time.
All right. Well, that sounds pretty reasonable. I guess there's not too much extra complications to get into. We had a conversation with TMC about whether they were using NVGs or not. I don't have to ask you that because you are all in flankers, and I know the answer is we don't have any.
Carrots.
Carrots, indeed. Carrots and Gamma 10. We had Gamma cranked so we could even see the fight. Of course, that last fight getting way into the dark just due to some technical difficulties. No one's fault. It happens. But, run that Gamma up to try and make up for that lack of night vision goggle. Eat some carrots. Well, before I let you go, last question now here. Congratulations, of course, on your victory. Very well fought. I think everybody looks at 51st as sort of being some of the top dogs here and really a threat to be reckoned with. I know TMC said, look, we're coming for you next year. We're gonna fight you. We're gonna get to the semifinals, but next time we're gonna win. Yeah. Of course, referencing that this was the same map they fought you guys in the semifinals last year.
Yeah, it's funny that I was thinking that as well.
Indeed, the little idiosyncrasies of life. Sometimes they're ready to come for you guys, but congratulations still on your victory. Now going forward, fighting PTF and the semifinals. Any thoughts you can share with us on that next upcoming match, or is it all got to be kept secret sauce?
Well, much like what I said with Air Show in the 3-4-3 match, we really just, we don't really see, X team, we just, at the beginning of this interview, shoot Bandit.
Shoot Bandit.
So really not much to add there. Can't wait to face them in the semis.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you for the interview. We appreciate it. You've put up a great match. Convey that I said that to the rest of your teammates because you all fought very well. And I think everyone's excited to see the semifinals with you guys in it. Definitely the strong runners in this category. Hopefully we can see you guys go all the way to a fantastic final round with whoever wins those matches. I'll have to get back to you on that. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening, and thank you for the interview. And I guess we're just going to get back in real quick talking about sort of what the difference is there.
Just want to say great match, TMC, and yeah, can't wait for our next meeting.
Fantastic. Well, there you guys see it. Of course, everybody who's fighting these matches, win or lose, they're very proud to fight these planes, fight the teams they're with, and they're very grateful that people are here. All right. I will talk to you next time, Rich. Congratulations, and have a great rest of your evening. And we can really see there as we get into the very, very last seconds here of this stream, the difference that some people take, right? Where they invest their time. I think some of these teams are really looking at, hey, this is how this team plays. Let's change. Let's do this. Let's think about this. Let's work this. Fantastic stuff, right? And there's 51st. They're going to look. Plane's a plane, team's a team, a missile's a missile. Call a spade, stay at altitude, get your kills. That's what we do. And we drill the same tactic every time. And that way we can do the best possible fight. And it works, It works very, very well. But hey, when somebody figures out a way to break it up, it might be a problem for 51st. And that's what we're going to have to see in the semifinals, which I hope you guys will all show up for. I believe that is next week. It will be a fantastic match, now confirmed to be, as we go back to our final stage here, we can see confirmed that it is ETF versus 51st for the semifinals. It will be a fantastic match. You guys should definitely check it out. I have thoroughly enjoyed casting today. I hope you had a great time watching these matches. Thank you for everybody who showed their support by following. Thank you for the support showed by subscribing. It was very much appreciated. I thoroughly enjoy doing these streams for the fantastic community around this match and for the fantastic teams that fight in these matches. I think that's it for me. Have a fantastic evening. If you haven't caught any of the rounds today, they will be up on Twitch right away, and they will be up on YouTube as soon as possible. Make sure to watch them there. And I will see you guys in the next one. Good evening.